We're trying to resolve some technical issues for those that are viewing on channel 20. But I'd like to call our work session to order. The time is 5:35 p.m. Mr. Parker, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Daniels.
Here.
Ms. Green.
Present.
Mr. Lawson. Here. Mr. Majors. Ms. Rawls.
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez. Ms. Bowers.
Present. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Committee business this evening, you'll hear from two committees. We have two resolutions and some quarterly reporting to receive this evening. We'll begin with the Community and Economic Development Committee. I will defer to Chair Daniels.
Thank you. Mr. Parker, if you don't mind reading resolution 35-2023 into the record.
Yes. Resolution 35-2023. A resolution approving the preliminary / final land development and lot consolidation plan for 2709 and 2717 North Front Street, submitted by Adam Kerr with EI 2709 North Front Street LLC, to demolish the existing office buildings on the subject properties, combine the lots into a single parcel, and construct a 21-unit multi-family dwelling.
Thank you. If someone could, the representative for the administration, could you identify yourself, describe the project, the application process, any conditions that exist?
Sure. Jeffrey Knight, Planning Director with the city. As was read into a record for City Council here, the current proposal involves the consolidation of two lots on North Front Street at 2709 and 2717, and the demolition of the structures on site and the construction of a new 21-unit multifamily dwelling with associated site and access improvements, including a 44-space accessory parking lot and plant screening and other vegetation on site. The project will result in the construction of a floodplain compliant building and the removal of two non-compliant structures. In this case, the applicants also were required to get zoning relief for the establishment of a multifamily dwelling in the Riverfront District, which they have secured from the Zoning Hearing Board. So at this point, the last step before they can move forward is approval from City Council. As part of the overall project, the applicants will be removing one of the vehicular access points onto North Front Street, and actually turning the remaining one into a two-way driveway. It's currently only a one-way driveway into the site on the north end of 2717 North Front Street. Additionally, they will be constructing a curb and landscape screening along River Alley at the rear of both sites. Currently, access from River Alley to the rear of both sites is unrestricted, and they're fully paved in the backyard for kind of informal surface parking lots. So with all of that being said, the Planning Commission has recommended that City Council approve the request with the following conditions. The applicant will receive approval from the Zoning Hearing Board for the associated special exception application. Again, that's already been granted. The applicant will coordinate with the floodplain administrator on the necessary documentation to be filed prior to and after construction of the building, and all other obstructions on site, including the trash enclosure, which will be located off of River Alley, and a freestanding sign that will be in the front yard along North Front Street. And then finally, the applicants will coordinate with the Department of Public Works to confirm the design of the refuse collection area on site, that it will allow appropriate access, and that the billing accounts will be updated to reflect the new use. And the Planning Commission recommended that City Council approve the request for the following reasons. The existing structures are substantially deteriorated and outdated and require a significant amount of investment. However, due to the floodplain designation of both properties, the type of work that that can occur on site is limited by what's called the substantial improvement threshold. The new structure will be constructed in conformance with the floodplain regulations, including having all of the habitable spaces elevated above what's called the regulatory floodplain elevation. And then ensuring that the long-term viability of the development and the safety of residents on site. The project will remediate existing non-conforming aspects of the property related to setback encroachment and the lack of landscape screening. And again, that relates to the rear of both properties along River Alley. The proposal will result in the removal of a curb cut onto Front Street and physical separation between the rear parking area and River Street, improving vehicular and pedestrian circulation and safety and conforming to the city's Vision Zero policy. And finally, the project will promote sustainable multimodalism by incorporating 3 EV charging stations and a secured bike locker inside the building.
Thank you. And just for our general edification, which 2 buildings are the ones being demolished?
2770.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you can be a little bit more descriptive.
Yeah, would you like to see drawings or?
Sure, if you have them. So I guess this ends your presentation. If the applicant could go ahead and describe a little bit about the project. Including that, which buildings are demolishing, what features you're bringing to the fore, costs related to accessing those units once they're constructed, your timeline for construction.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ambrose Hines, I'm an attorney at Stevens and Lee on behalf of the applicant. With me tonight is Christine Hunter from Ed Black and Associates, who's the engineer or the site design on the project. And then Adam Kerr is the architect and a representative from the owner applicant with us tonight. So as Mr. Knight explained, this property is really consolidation of 2 parcels, 2709 and 2717, which is on North Front Street. It's the, Madam, I don't know if you want to, we'll let Adam run through the presentation on the whole project here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Adam Kerr, EI Associates, architectural firm and representative of EI 2709 North Front Street. So we have a number of drawings. I'll run through them, walk through the design of the building, and then we'll go into the site then, but then we can answer any questions. So this is a view looking at the proposed building from North Front Street. So in general, we're proposing a 4-story structure. The first, as referenced by Mr. Knight, is common area as well as covered parking. The upper 3 floors are all residential units. There are a total of 21 residential units. 15 of those are 1-bedroom that we are proposing, and 6 of those are 2-bedroom units. This is a view looking from River Alley to the rear of the building. You can see the open parking area as well as the 4-story structure as well. And this shows the entry from the rear of the building, which is intended to be the main entry to the building. So to answer your question, this is an existing aerial with an overlay that shows the 2 buildings that are proposed to be demolished. So 2717 and 2709 North Front Street. They're both existing 2-story office buildings.
And just by way of description, where are they located between what cross streets are those? And you might be on the next.
Can you please speak into the microphone, everyone? You have to speak very closely to be heard.
The properties are located north of Wiccanisco Street.
So this sheet shows some existing views of the buildings and of the site, as well as just sort of a description of the neighboring buildings. One thing we'll talk about is how we are, the rear of the buildings and the site is currently unobstructed access. We're proposing to limit circulation to one defined access for both properties in one location along River Alley. This is a plan that shows basically the available footprint for building, allowing for setbacks, et cetera, after demolition. This is an overall site plan. I won't go into too much detail here, as I think Christine will go through some of the site plan design. But in general, this shows the parking layouts. We are proposing some stormwater management along North Front Street in the grass area, as well as the footprint of the building itself. This is a plan that shows an enlarged view of the main entry level. We have a foyer. We also have a fitness space, a mailroom. We're proposing leasable storage as well as bicycle storage on this level. As Mr. Knight referenced, the only space or spaces that are not all above the base flood elevation plus the freeboard elevation would be the trash room, any stairs that access to grade from a emergency egress standpoint, as well as the bike room. This is a view that shows each of the residential floors. They are all typical. So floors 2, 3, and 4 are all basically a mirror image stacked on top of each other. Again, we showed two bedrooms flanking the building, as well as 5 one-bedrooms in between. We have a connecting corridor along with 2 egress stairs and an elevator as well. We are proposing on the roof level to have a terrace that would overlook the river as well. So this shows that view, which would also have stair and elevator access as well. And then these are 2-dimensional elevations showing what the building could potentially look like. The 3D view showed a little bit better, but we wanted to include some 2-dimensional representational image showing in scale. And then finally, this is a cross section of the building showing the 4-story structure, as well as keeping within the building height limit of 45 feet to the roof. Now the stairs and elevator, as well as railings would be above that level. But 45 feet would be to the top of the roof structure with the 4 stories.
Adam, just a little follow-up on that. The 2 existing buildings are currently office buildings, but they're not, excuse me, they aren't being occupied right now at present time.
Correct. Both are unoccupied.
Thank you. And what's your time frame for beginning once the project is approved, and what are the rates that the units will be going for?
So to your first question, we anticipate starting construction spring of next year. That is our goal. And we haven't yet set the rates. So that's something that we're still finalizing, cost of the building, as well as doing some research to see rates in the area and so forth.
And then this is for Mr. Knight. I'm assuming because it's approved that they are meeting the height requirements.
That's correct. The building will be within the height limits for the riverfront district.
And this is for my edification. So I see that there's some stormwater management outside of the footprint of the building, but are there other stormwater management tools available for situations like this where the parking is on the first floor?
I mean, it's always possible that the applicants could do something like adding a cistern that would collect rainwater runoff from the roof. That's probably something that could be an add-on, not incorporated in the structural element of the building. But the proposal for the on-site stormwater management is going to be an improvement from the existing condition, where it's basically just a grass yard in the front with no kind of structured stormwater infrastructure. And so this will better perform from a stormwater management standpoint in the future once the building's constructed than the current sites do. And
then are there any historical building requirements? Is this within any kind of historical district or? No, and both of the, although there are
properties along Front Street that are probably maybe worthy of historic preservation. These are kind of mid-century buildings constructed in the 1960s and 50s, I believe. They don't really have a lot of architectural value. So even if there were a district, I don't know that this would be like a loss of historic resources.
And this is just my personal opinion. Aesthetically, I would like for it to be a little bit less minimalist in its appearance, but that's just a preference. I'll go ahead and open up for questions for my colleagues. I'll start with Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I had two questions, but one I'm gonna wait for a little bit later, but my first question was, I didn't see, and it could have been in here, I missed it, but how much parking will you have depending on the units, like parking and units together?
Are we 44 total parking spaces?
44 total?
So almost, well, no, I guess we do have 2 per unit. Approximately about two
Okay.
spaces per unit.
Good, okay, thank you. My other question, I'm gonna wait because I know President Bowers will have some of the same lining I will with questioning, so I'll let her ask that first, so, thank you.
Councilman Lawson.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Has a general contractor been chosen yet for the construction?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. Just because of us being a city of I guess majority minority, are you open to working with contractors that have either the minority business designation or women designation?
Yes, absolutely. We will solicit pricing from firms, correct?
Okay, great. Thank you. That's everything that I have.
Thank you. Vice President Green.
Thank you. I don't really have many questions. I got to ask most of them during the planning commission meeting. I will say that I believe aesthetics was brought up during that meeting. I want to say this, the pictures might be updated a little compared to then. I believe they are updated some to give us a little more detail. And so it's actually been, the aesthetics have been updated since then. So thank you for the updates, but always can go a little further.
President Bowers.
Thank you. I have a question regarding affordability. So I'm just curious if you will be participating in the city's affordable housing program, which would deem 20% affordable, which would equate to about 4 units, 4 of the 21.
We are not planning to participate in that program.
Okay. And the rent range has not been determined?
Not yet, it hasn't. We're in that market analysis presently.
Okay, and you are aware that we did amend the initial program to include small area zip codes, which would ensure that our residents' median family income would be utilized in discussing new development.
Yes, we were.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
I'll give Councilman Majors a moment to collect himself, and I'll go to Councilman Rodriguez next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My questions have been asked already. Thank you.
Mr. Majors, do you have any questions?
Well, first, I just want to apologize for my tardiness this evening. I was able to review the information and came in on the back end of Council President's questions. I'll just say this. So you have no idea on what you're planning to charge.
We've talked about parameters, but we haven't
No,
set
the answer
exact.
is no. The answer is no. You talked
No,
about the answer is no. Okay. Not willing to participate in a affordable housing ordinance that we were trying to just look at 20%. just frustrating that we have folks that want to come in, do business. We're more than willing to work with folks that want to come into our community, do business, even folks that have had market rate rents or above market rate rents in our community have said that, right? You know, we don't, just trying to compose myself. It's a little frustrating as building and housing chair of the work that we've done in this community to try to deal with the issue of affordability. It's affordability and the issue of housing in the city. And someone can come wanting to do a project like this and not be able to just give us a range. So rather than lay all my frustrations out at this current moment, I won't have any further questions, but just thank you for just straighten. That was good, but thank you, President Bowers. You asked a lot of the questions that I did have about this. So thank you. Thank you, Chair Daniels.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the other council members, or is there anything else, Mr. Knight?
I
any
had one more
applicants would like to-
question.
Go ahead.
One more. If you're not willing to participate in the program with just at least 20% of the apartments being affordable, are you at least willing to say, whoever fills out an application for this apartment, we will only charge them, it will only be 20% of what their paychecks are that they bring to us?
I don't think this moment we can commit to that.
So when you all decided to redevelop a part of Harrisburg, what were you thinking about? Like, who did you want to live in these apartments? What was your reason for coming here?
Well, I think the reason was we saw a trend towards multifamily residential versus the commercial office. You know, we were initially looking to do some renovations to the buildings, but in conversations with city staff, those renovations became problematic. So we decided to propose a multifamily development, again, seen at more of a trend. And, you know, being right along the river, we saw an opportunity to create some really nice units. But, you know, again, you know, due to the size and kind of scale of the building, only having 21 units, we're proposing those to be market rate units.
Okay. And do you know what the median income is in Harrisburg?
Not off the top of my head, no.
We'll see. And that's the research that has to be done, because yeah, we definitely want different people to come into the city and live, but we also want our residents to be taken care of first, because they deserve that. It shouldn't matter how much you make. You should be able to live anywhere you choose to. So it's just a little disheartening. I don't know if you all did enough research on what is in the community, what the community truly needs, and what most of our community members can afford. I understand market rate. I also understand that to build a community, you can't just have affordable housing. You also have to have market rate too, for houses to get their proper like income or what they need when they go to resale. I do understand that part. So we need both, but it's as if you're not willing to give any. So it's just kind of hard, and you don't have a reason why.
But, and the reason why is because of the scale of this property. You have a property that we're limited in terms of how many units we can put on this property. It's small buildable area and a low height threshold. It's only 40 feet. So you can only fit a certain number of 1 and 2. I mean, these aren't big units. They're 1 and 2 bedroom units. To build a project with the number of units that we have as a result of those limitations, 21 units, in order to make the project financially viable, that's what needs to happen here. You can't have affordable units in every project that comes down the pike.
You can.
Well, it's not realistic in the financial viability. That's
Go change it. Be a game changer, change what you need to change and create a different blueprint is how I feel. I think anything's possible if you're out to serve people. And that's, I feel like what has to change is how do we serve each other rather how do we make a dollar? So it's, you have to be flexible and you have to change things. That's just how I see it.
And we have to work within the parameters with the ordinance provides, and that's. how
Understand
we
that.
came.
But I don't think the ordinance
Well, that's
says you
the
have to have 21 units.
The ordinance it has limitations on the total number of units.
Right, I understand that part. So what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. All I'm saying is
That's the
you
explanation.
have, right. And I get it, but I also think you have the right to change certain things within the parameters to make sure it meets the needs of the community. You got to understand the community you're coming into so that you're not just coming in, like I said, to make a dollar, but you're coming in to actually help. If we continue to help each other, that's how we make changes, where it's not enough people that are helping one another. That's my point with that. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Just kind of as a follow-up, if I'm correct, when this question was kind of asked during the planning commission meeting, as far as pricing, and you said you weren't sure of the pricing at that time. You said that they were going to be luxury units, and my response was something like, so it's going to be a luxury price tag.
Well, they're going to be market rate units. I mean, these are intended to be nice units along the river. That's.
All right, just kind of from my recollection, I remember the specific use of the word luxury. And just because my response was they're gonna be a luxury price tag. So I just wish by the time you made it here, you would have had a little more of a range or, something a little more definite. Not that you come here, the same question gets asked and we kind of get the exact same answer or even less. So just wish you would have been prepared more for tonight.
Okay, so just a quick reminder to council members that we can change the ordinance and make the ordinance a mandate. So, we can't really make people do something that was designed as voluntary. But that's something that should be considered and introduced at some other point. But if there are no other questions, I'd like to add this to the agenda for the next legislative session. And let's, if we could read resolution 36-2023 into the record. Mr. Parker?
Yes. Resolution 36-2023. A resolution approving the preliminary / final land development plan for 202 State Street submitted by WCI Partners to convert an existing office building into a 4-unit multifamily dwelling.
If the representative for the administration could give us a brief description of the process of involved in this particular resolution.
Sure. So the current proposal before city council here is involving the conversion of the property at 202 State Street from an office building into 4 residential units. The project required the approval of zoning relief in order to establish the 4-unit development because the property's in the commercial neighborhood district and it would have only permitted 1 unit by right. The zoning hearing board did grant that zoning relief. The project is a bit unique in that it's returning a building to a historically residential use. So when I believe the applicant bought the property in 2006, it had been, I believe at the time, a mixed-use building with 3 residential units on the upper floors and a commercial unit on the first floor. And then after their purchase, they converted it to fully commercial use. Now, as maybe council is aware, especially post-COVID, commercial vacancies downtown are a little bit higher than they have been historically, and there's demand for housing downtown. And so this project is one of several that council has heard over the past few years where you're converting these office spaces to residential apartment buildings downtown. I did check with the codes administration on the historic use of the property to confirm that it was in fact previously 4 total units, 3 residential and 1 commercial. And so that was the basis upon which the zoning hearing board granted approval for the conversion back to 4 residential units. I believe that there's no intention to do any exterior alterations. So the property is located in the old Harrisburg Municipal and National Historic Districts. But if they do proceed with any sort of exterior alterations, they'll have to go back through the process. But at this time, per the applicant's testimony at the meetings, they have no intention to do so. With all of that being said, the Planning Commission recommends that City Council approve the request with the following conditions. The applicant will receive approval of the associated variance application filed concurrently with the land development plan application. And again, that was granted by the zoning hearing board. And then the applicant will coordinate with the Department of Public Works to ensure that the account billing is updated to reflect the proposed change in use. Planning Commission recommended that the City Council approve the request for the following reasons. The project will adaptively reuse an office building, ensuring the continued occupancy of a historically and architecturally significant building. The proposal will add new residents to the neighborhood to activate the street on nights and weekends and continue growing a customer base to support local businesses. And finally, given that the property has retained its internal configuration as distinct units and the project will be returning the property to its previous use, the proposal meets the criteria for the granting of a variance application.
Thank you. If the applicant could introduce themselves, give us a description of the project, timeframe and rates for units. Appreciate it.
Sure, you bet. Dave Butcher with WCI Partners. As Mr. Knight indicated, we've owned the building since 2006. When we purchased it, there was a doctor's office on the first floor. The building is second in state. So if you're looking, you know where Cork and Fork is on the corner. So this is the building directly to the right there. It's a 3-story row building. So when we bought it, there were 3 apartments upstairs and then a doctor's office on the first floor. And then it was converted to it was converted to offices after that. But most of the residential characteristics of the building remained. There are 3 kitchen areas and then 4 full bathrooms. So it still looks like it was apartments, but it was essentially rented out as an office. And as Mr. Knight mentioned, as the office demand has shifted downtown, we felt that it was better to reuse the building as apartments. So in terms of timeframe, we would start work probably in June, July. It's not a big project. It's not. Shouldn't be terribly expensive to convert it because, as I mentioned, most of it is residential in nature already. And so that there's not too much involved in the conversion. In terms of unit pricing, though, there will be 2 1-bedrooms, 1 2-bedroom, and then 1 kind of 1-bedroom/studio. The units will range from $795 to about $1,295. So the unit, the 1-bedroom would I think meet we're only talking 4 units, so 1 out of 4, I guess 25%, but that would meet the affordability component.
And when you said June, you mean 2023 or 2024?
Yeah, sorry, 2023 for the record. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and open up to my council members for question. I'll start with Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you. I was wondering how much parking will you have for this?
Yeah, no parking with the building right now, but I don't think it's required in this.
That's correct. It's in the commercial neighborhood zoning district, which does not require parking for uses.
Yeah, and I think per the code, sorry, I'm speaking, reducing the parking demand. So based on what's required by the code, I think it's 1 per 200 square feet. So
for office uses, it's definitely an overall reduction in the demand if the business or if the property would be fully occupied as either commercial versus residential.
Okay, yeah, the codes probably have to be updated. 'Cause I know parking's an issue, so you can only do what is laid out in code, so. Okay, thank you. That's it.
You bet.
Councilman Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Butford, do you handle your construction in-house or do you sub out?
This one will probably do, well, we'll use a combination of subs and in-house.
All right. So the main question I have is, are you planning or are you open to working with both residents and designated MBE minority business enterprise contractors to help with the renovation of the project?
Sure, and we've been doing different projects since '06, and we have, and we'll continue to do that, to put out bidding and we want as broad participation as possible in these projects.
Great, great. Yeah, we just want to make sure that the money stays in the city.
Sure.
We appreciate you.
Yep. You bet. Thank you.
Vice President Green?
Thank you. I don't really have any questions for you.
Okay.
President Bowers?
Thank you. My question is around affordability. I believe you already answered it, but I'd just like to make sure our meeting record is accurate. So we talked about the affordable housing program, which deems 20%. That would be one bedroom, I'm assuming in this case.
Mhm.
So are you willing to participate with the rent range that you've noted, or if within the zip code, if it varies, are you open to participating?
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with the legislation to know what it requires, but I'm happy to look at it. I
Okay.
think this building would probably qualify in that instance.
Yes, it's just 20% of the total units. And as I mentioned previously, we amended the original ordinance to include small area zip codes where through HUD, where an individual could go in with their zip code that is city proper. What we were finding, many developers were coming in utilizing Dauphin County's median family income, and we know that's 3 to 4 times larger than city proper residency and our median family income. So just to clarify, but thank
Okay,
you.
sure.
Councilman Majors?
No questions on, for the applicant. I think the ones that I did have already asked and answered. Just on the resolution itself, we may just have to go, at least at the beginning, and just make a correction. It says it was submitted by WIC partners instead of WCI partners. But thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for being
Thanks.
here.
What, repeat that?
On the resolution itself, when you look at the actual legislation, just at least a correction, at least on the document that I have, and yeah, so just some minor change.
Thank you for
Thank
pointing that out. Councilman Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have more of a point of order. I'm getting distracted like week after week in any way I can help as far as with the young
It's called
one.
parenting.
Yes, but I also have 5 kids.
And if you came prepared
and
to
we
the
were-
meetings, you wouldn't be
excuse me,
distracted because I.
Point
should
of
run the
order, ma'am,
meeting.
point of order, ma'am,
Point of
point of order, ma'am, point of order,
Vice
ma'am,
President Green,
point of order, ma'am.
If we could.
We
just let
all have
everyone- 1 second,
children
if we-
and we ensure our children are where they need to
You're a
be.
public
The
servant and
residents, the
this-
residents elected us to do a job, and I just would like to do that instead of showing up.
Well, maybe
being
come
nauseous
prepared.
with the smell
Maybe
of,
come prepared.
Being prepared has nothing to
we
do
could
with
say
McDonald's.
one at a
I'm
time.
prepared every meeting, ma'am. You running
This is
for
my
another
meeting.
office, how can you run for another office in this
This
manner?
is my, we're
Thank
the
you. That was my point of
portion
order.
the
Thank
meeting.
you.
If we could please respect each other as
Right.
we speak so that we can speak one at a time.
Yeah, let's
He does,
remember,
he does have the right to speak, just like you have the right to speak. So if you could just allow each person to speak and then respond,
yeah,
that way it just keeps it a little
we're
more.
discussing resolution 36-2023.
I do know
not
that.
Parenting, not childcare, not whether public
I gave a
servants
point
are
of order.
close
That
to
was a
the
point of
the
order, ma'am.
public.
That was a
Councilman
point of order.
Rodriguez,
That's a
Ca-
privileged motion. I have
Councilman
every right to do so.
So are there any other questions around the ordinance?
once again, I would just ask that everyone respect each other. If one person is speaking let them finish speaking before you start speaking. I understand that we may disagree on certain things. We may believe that certain things aren't to be discussed at this moment, but we still need to allow each other to speak, and then we can respond in an orderly fashion. As public officials, we do have to be a representative of the constituents of Harrisburg, and so we have to act accordingly. And so allowing each other to speak, I think, is a minimal thing that we can do. So that is for all council members. If we could just be respectful of each other and respectful of the meeting itself.
Thank you. Are there any other questions related to resolution 36-2023?
Chair, I don't have a question. I just wanted to note this resolution and resolution 35. They will be deemed approved by May 30th. So I heard you say that you were going to put on the agenda, but I just wanted to make that clear that both of them have that date.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
clarifying that for the record. Mr. Majors, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that concludes discussion on this resolution. If this could be added to the legislative session, the next one, I appreciate that. And that concludes all the business for the Community and Economic Development Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I apologize. I'm not sure what occurred. I stepped out to use the ladies' room. We'll
And I
now
would
move
just-
forward with, okay, Vice President Green.
Thank you. I'd like to apologize to the staff and to the applicant for that as well, because you had no place being put in the middle of that. So I apologize for that.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you. Thank you very much. We'll now move forward with the business of the Public Safety Committee. I will defer to Chair Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Starting our quarterly reports, we'll begin with the Bureau of Police. Who will we have? Commissioner? I see Commissioner Carter. Captain, thank you. And whenever you're settled, we can begin the overview of the quarterly reports for the Bureau of Police. Thank you, gentlemen. Absolutely.
Good evening.
Sir, could you please speak clearly into the microphone?
Yes,
Thank you.
You got to get kind of on.
Okay.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. There you go. Again, Kenneth Young, Technical Services Captain with the Bureau of Police. Before I start, did everyone get a copy of the report that I sent?
Yes.
Happy to give you mine. You're welcome. Okay, Commissioner, I have my name.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with the grants. The Bureau earned 3 grants between 2022 and 2023. The first one was the Group Violence Intervention. The next one would be a local law enforcement grant through PCCD. The last one is a gun violence and prosecution grant through PCCD. Currently, the Group Violence Intervention grant, during the first quarter, there were 22 meetings held with community members, partners, and stakeholders. Presentation to the president of the Harrisburg Neighborhood Associations. And there was a contract with Dauphin County Human Services Director.
Oh, sorry, Cap. Could I have you hold on just for a sec? I could barely hear you. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Contact was made with Dauphin County Human Services Director to discuss social services need for GVI. Memorandum of agreement was finalized with Dauphin County Probation Services. They held 2 incident reviews with law enforcement partners. They continued their observation with York City Police Department GVI strategy and action. And those they were at meetings they had with the law enforcement incident review down in York, community incident review, and then custom notifications. This grant is set to expire at the end of the year. However, they're going to apply for an extension to PCCD through June of 2024. They're currently, they conducted interviews for program manager with an anticipated hiring date of late spring, early summer. And they're moving forward with the credible messengers and the program implementation. The second grant I mentioned was a gun violence investigation and prosecution grant, or GVIP of 2023, excuse me. The Bureau was awarded $1,262,501 on 10 April 2023. This grant includes a Cellbrite technology, which is forensics cell phone download and training that goes along with that. Shot spotter technology, porch lights, ring doorbells, light bulb replacement. It also included overtime for saturation details and then funding for a forensics investigator position.
And I'm just overjoyed, shot spotter with the doorbell technology.
It's all there, yeah.
Not to interject, would that interfere with the PCCD grant with the phone technology that you were referring to? Because ShotSpotter kind of has its own technology for the officers as well. Would that be used?
Well, the Cellbrite technology is more of a it's a download
Okay.
for phones.
Okay.
So yeah, it wouldn't interfere with anything.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
The last one would be the Local Law Enforcement Support Grant, or LLES of 2023. The initial discussion with PCCD was in April. This grant, as of today, has not been awarded. The grant amount was $2,219,094. This grant includes license plate readers for vehicles, FARO technology, which is crime scene preservation, mental health, wellness, and then also funding for Chaplain Lathrop. Retention bonuses, mental health resiliency program services for officer wellness, body worn camera replacement, which is a significant savings. That's over 300,000 by itself. And then funding for evidence custodian. Criminal Investigation Division, the Vice section, Vice had 58 cases assigned to them. They seized 233 grams of crack cocaine, 341 grams of cocaine, 1,060 dosage units of heroin, 48 ounces of marijuana, $92,508 in U.S. currency, 9 firearms, conducted 16 search warrants, and made 36 arrests. The CID adult offender section, the adult detectives were assigned 34 cases, and juveniles detectives were assigned 107 cases. Forensics processed 144 crime scenes, collected 138 pieces of evidence, collected 46 videos, 16 APIS cases were also entered. Crime stats for the first quarter, we had 2 homicides, 8 incidents of rape, 226 drug offenses, 15 officers assaulted. Community Services Division, animal control officers responded to 234 calls of service and issued 9 citations as a result of their investigations in the first quarter. Officer Lamke retired in March after 38 years of dedicated service to the city. For the first quarter, the CP unit handled 225 calls for service. CSA unit handled approximately 175 calls for service. The HUD unit handled 165 calls for service. Director Houston has begun planning for this year's National Night Out, which is scheduled for Tuesday, August 1st, 2023, 5:30 to 8 o'clock on City Island. And she's in the beginning stages of that. And there'll be more information as she progresses along. Resumes are currently being reviewed and interviews are being set up for the open CSA positions.
How many are those currently?
2.
Thank you.
Technical services, the training unit, as of for the first quarter, for hosting trainings here in Harrisburg, we saved $2,390. Basically, they were just seats for the training. We started bureau-wide training. Day 1 was February and March. For bureau-wide training, we did firearms qualification and training. This included, added into this, would have been a prone handcuff suspect to a standing position. We did a use of force review and any changes. We also did, it was also included behavioral clues for individuals to predict their actions via cluster cards, de-escalation to include the DEBS profile, and a behavior influence stairway model. We also recertified in first aid and CPR. Day 2, which is March and April, we continued with defensive tactics. It was a MOPEC requirement. And then we also did use of force training. Again, that was a MOPEC requirement. And MOPEC access supply training for that segment. Additionally, we did some CODI, which is our RMS training, NIVERS training.
towed vehicles below 100, and emergency response. Police academies, in January, we completed the hiring process and we placed 10 new officers in the Act Municipal Police Academy for Act 120 certification. They're expected to graduate July 14th, 2023. February 2023, 4 officers graduated from Temple Police Academy. Those 4 officers were part of the docuseries Becoming the Change. We also started in-house, which for the 4 new Temple officers, that's approximately 6 weeks long. And then also started field training at the end of February for 6 officers. Field training consists of on-the-job training, and that's 12 weeks long. In the first quarter of 2023, 74 officers attended 25 different outside the Bureau trainings related to various topics in their current assignments. Of note, 5 additional officers graduated from crisis intervention training in March, which was hosted by Dauphin County, bringing the departmental total to 70 officers trained. We also had 10 officers successfully complete Executive Leadership Institute, and that's part of the FBI Leader Trilogy. Recruitment and testing. As of March 28th, 2023, we had 97 applicants registered on policeone.com. Snap.com. Of those 97, 52 completed the final paperwork, and we're scheduled to take the PT test or the physical fitness test on April 15th. As far as advertising for the recruiting, we use static billboards by Lamar Advertising. We had 25 billboards located within the city limits and the surrounding central PA areas. We also use Cat Plus mobile billboards. There were 10 ads on two different sizes on the outside of buses located in Harrisburg, Lancaster, Lebanon, and York for 4 weeks. Additionally, we had 40 interior advertisements on the bus for 4 weeks. Our door system, first quarter, we had 526 reports that were filed online, which saved a total of 789 hours. Total savings is $21,040. Parking enforcement, deposits to Treasury for parking tickets was $160,500. Parking tickets issued for $7,919. We collected $75 for a boot fee. Bags and signs was $19,564. Permits was $8,005, and a total income of $188,144. Uniform patrol, incidents logged by patrol officers in the first quarter in Cody was 17,313. Highlight of that was on February 22nd, 2023, Officers Dahl and Ishman and co-responder Miller were credited with saving the life of a 3-year-old who was reportedly in cardiac arrest. When they arrived, the child was unresponsive. Officers Dahl, Ishman, and co-responder Miller worked together, started chest compressions, administered a dose of Narcan. They then transported the child to the hospital where staff rendered aid. The child regained consciousness. As a side, note, on March 24th, 2023, K-9 officer Zoe passed away from lymphoma just a couple of days after she retired. Narcan usage during the first quarter, Harrisburg police encountered 16 victims of suspected opioid overdose. Narcan was administered to each victim. 12 of the victims showed signs of recovery on scene. 2 of the victims were confirmed deceased. 2 of the victims did not show signs of recovery at the scene and were transported to the hospital for further treatment. Co-responders, we have 3 co-responders. They fielded 174 calls in the first quarter. Street crimes unit for the first quarter seized $5,265 in marijuana, $6,680 worth of cocaine and crack cocaine, $3,160 worth of fentanyl, $13,870 worth of methamphetamine, $4,200 worth of PCP, $1,860 in pills, $18,644 in U.S. currency, and firearms. Saturation details resumed on March 30th.
Thank you for that. A lot of great metrics there. I definitely would like to give the officer, how many, you said 30 plus years of service when he retired?
Sorry?
The officer that retired after, you said 30?
Yeah, Fred Lamprey, 38.
Yeah, definitely wanted to take our hats off to him. That's a huge task. A lot of dedication to the community. Lamke, was it?
Yes,
Lamke,
he's
yep,
an animal control officer.
absolutely. Do you guys still participate in the street cops training?
We do.
You do?
Yep.
Is there, because I've watched a few, like clips and a few antics that the instructor does. I could be looking at the wrong one, the one that was sent to my desk. It's the instructors like kind of influencing the officers to kind of go against the constitutional rights of each, let's say, assailant per se.
I haven't attended any.
Okay,
And the feedback we've gotten from the officers who have attended, there's been nothing like that.
okay,
Part of the training.
okay. Because I think I've seen one like from Nebraska, one from Florida, and if it's the same guidance, that was concerning. I'm not sure if it's the same one that we take here, but maybe that's something we can definitely look into. Absolutely, thank you. The docu-series, that's the one Mr. Mazel was working on,
Correct.
correct? When will that be available, like for viewing? I'm highly interested. That seems awesome.
YouTube.
Can you please move the microphone closer?
Sorry,
I think you have to speak really close
Okay.
or people won't be able to hear you.
Yeah, you gotta
I'm
kind of
sorry.
hover over.
Thank you.
It's WHBG TV has it and then YouTube has it as well.
Okay, and now the 97 applicants that applied, you said there was about follow-up with about 60 plus of those?
52 had made it to take the test, meaning they completed the paper.
Absolutely. Is there any processes to follow back up with the other ones that didn't prepare themselves for the test? Maybe to find out why, maybe we can retain them on another.
At this point, there's not.
Okay,
So, I mean, we did the testing on April 15th and 16th. And there was a lot of phone calls prior to that, people to do the police app and things like that. Once they're registered on there, we see a list of who they are, and then we try to contact them to make sure and actually extend help complete whatever you need to complete. You
Yeah.
have everything you need. So,
I think some of them, they probably really want to be an officer, but then get the little nervousness in them, kind of just back away, maybe just a little encouragement from a commissioner or a captain, like, hey, what's going on? Like, we're a good unit, they might just come on down, so that'd be awesome. Out of the 16 victims, 12 were recovered, and I know it's only but so much we could really discuss. Is that just high percentage of fentanyl still in the community, or some of that still kind of is addressed with like just heroin or everyday like narcotics? Or is it still like predominantly like fentanyl in there?
fentanyl, heroin, other drugs. It's big down in Philly,
Yes.
and when they do it, it's their skin. They have to cut their hands.
Pull the mic close.
They have to cut their hands
Thank
off
you.
or a limb that is affected by the drug. And so the drug is here. We just haven't had any.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. I think that's pretty much all I have. I'd like to open it up to my immediate right, Councilwoman Daniels.
If you could just discuss the number of complaints that you received, what those resolutions were.
Complaints as in,
Police officer.
I don't have the type of complaints. I can tell you in the document, and I'm sorry. Page 8 is the internal affairs section. It's a breakdown. There were a total number of 5 complaints. And then we got a breakdown of officers involved as well as the person filing complaints. It looks like the sworn officers involved, there were a total of 6 males, 2 females. And then one of the officers, African-American, 5 were Caucasian, and then the 2 females were unknown. By unknown, it's simply that somebody had gone by and saw something, and then they reported it, and they were just actually traveling through, didn't get all the specifics, but actually came in and followed up and filed a complaint. of that ethnicity. Two were Hispanic, four were non-Hispanic, and again, the two females were unknown. Total of eight, total of eight complaints by officer involved demographics, total of eight.
Were they all resolved or was the resolution?
Yes, and we did not put that information in here. I'm sorry about that, but we can get it to you.
That would be great. And then I remember, I don't know if this is still available, but I remember we used to be able, if someone had like a restaurant, they could agree to share their videos free with the police department. Do we still have that? And does that integrate well with the technology that we're now looking at?
You can still access it, yes. I mean, obviously.
Do we make use of it?
We do at times. I mean, when we're permitted to do so, obviously. Yeah, and I mean, we usually go out and collect it is what we'll do, essentially out to
Okay.
collect it. With technology changing so fast, it's hard to keep up with everything. It's a little easier to send someone out. You have the person that's there operating the system and we're able to get all the video.
So based on your best guesstimate, will that integrate in any way with the technology that we're looking at here?
Yes.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilman Majors.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. So just a couple of questions with the retirement of Mr. Lamke. Have we filled the position yet, or where's the status of the animal control office?
So we haven't filled the position yet. We're in the process of trying to create a animal control officer 1 and an animal control officer 2. So after we get that squared away, which is with ASME right now, once we get that squared away, that position will be advertised.
Posted and advertised, okay. Second, I know you mentioned with a lot of the advertisements you were doing, the use of billboards, buses, etc. That advertisement is for what? Is that for open positions or just to get, what exactly are we advertising?
No,
And the billboards.
it was the advertisement for Be the Change, which was our recruiting campaign that we had. It was to get people to apply.
Okay, and then how do you measure the effectiveness of using, particularly on the inside and outside of the buses? I just want to make sure that if we're going to be, how do you measure the effectiveness? Okay.
I can give you a very long explanation. It talks about impressions. It's actually in the document. It talks about impressions, which are views of the, bear with me for 1 minute.
Councilman Majors, I guess that the short answer is simply that when we did consortium testing with 13 other agencies, we only got a response of 200 applicants. On our own, we got a response of, I think it was over 94, wasn't it? It was 97 applicants. So it's not where we want it to be at, but it's a lot better of advertising with 13 other agencies, you know, getting 200. And so since we're civil service, we have to do everything by the book, and so we get the last pick at the litter. You know,
Or
doing
the
it this
other
way,
side, right?
that's-
But
it's
doing
like
doing it this way, we're getting, you're saying,
getting first bite at the apple.
Okay.
instead of last.
all right. No, I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting it correct. So, you know, how much money we're spending on advertising, where we're advertising versus the number of applicants, and then the number of folks that end up actually, you know, wanting to go through the training and to become a Harrisburg officer. Like, are we sure that the folks, the advertising methodology that we're using is getting the people to us, or is it just, it's out there, we're getting impressions, and are they all 97, are they responding that, hey, we saw it on a billboard or on a bus? Sometimes, are we advertising in the right places to get people to apply?
Yes, I think we are. Recruiting war is tough because everybody
Oh,
is.
absolutely.
Officers right now. And, you know, it's getting noticed, and the main thing is to be noticed. And after being noticed, people respond to what they see, in the application. You know, would I like to have more people put in for the job? Yes. You know, but like right now, you know, police occupation is a tough occupation to sell at this present point.
Just the last question, and I apologize if it's in the document as I was trying to pull it up again on my phone. I had looked at it before, but I couldn't get the first few pages, trying to get some of the later information isn't showing up. So for the GVI, do you list out the organizations that you've met with? You note that you had 22 meetings. Like, who are we meeting with?
So did you receive the mail from Captain Martin? And that's the last, from the last meeting we had.
Mhm.
They met with what they call GBI University. It's the overall strategy. It was held virtually in October, and it was representatives from Tri-County Community Association, Latino Hispanic American Community Center, Tri-County OIC, and the Harrisburg Family Care Center. They were also coordinating with the city's efforts to engage through Cities United.
Okay, so you're saying that it's the same, I'm asking, so I noted for quarter 1, so January through March, that there were 22. Is
Right.
it the same organizations that we met with the last quarter from, or are these new organizations, is what I'm asking? That's,
I'm sorry, I don't have that.
okay.
I can
all right,
get it for
we'll
you.
follow up. All right,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
can get it.
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez.
Thank you, Councilman Majors.
It's the same.
Okay.
All right, Madam President.
Thank you. I have a few questions regarding vacancies, and then I'd like to follow up on the GVI grant. When do you intend to fill the 2 CSA vacancies that are available?
So right now we're doing interviews. They start within the next week or so. And then based on those interviews, the outcome of those interviews, we'll take the applicants that applied. And then we'll move forward from there. So hopefully within, to give you a time frame, hopefully within the next month.
Okay. Some of the other vacancies that you noted during the budget season were a detective vacancy, a lieutenant vacancy, and a sergeant vacancy, but I think you noted that you anticipated filling those in the second quarter of the year.
So we recently did promotional testing.
Okay,
So we have the list for those particular ranks.
okay,
The list was recently certified by the Civil Service Commission. And then the anticipated plan is, once it's certified, is to actually go through the list, and then that's a commission decision as to who gets promoted at that.
okay.
We have a list now.
But you anticipate that all 3 of those vacancies will be filled?
The supervisory positions, yes. And then
Okay,
the detective, that one should be coming up soon.
okay, thank you. Now back to the GVI grant. With the 22 meetings with the same groups and organizations, I guess I'm just wondering how productive we've really been. How productive has the team been? That's my first question. And my second question is there an opportunity for residents to participate? Say they have expertise in the area, maybe outside of the presidents of the neighborhood associations. If someone was interested in volunteering their services, are they able to join in on these meetings, or how could they assist?
Part of that would be, so yes, to answer your question, yes. So part of that would be the credible messengers that would be sent out. And they would actually talk to members of the community. So that would be the credible messenger part of that. And then, I'm sorry, the first question was?
It's just on the productivity, because if you're
Right.
seeking an extension through, you said June or July next year?
June of 2024.
Okay. And when has the request been made for the extension, or it's still being discussed?
Sorry. Right, so the decision was made, but they haven't approached PCCD or haven't approached the people that control GBI grant. So there's been no contact with them as of this point.
Okay, and then how would somebody identify a credible messenger?
I can get that information for you.
I'm just for residents who may be interested in assisting, if they don't know who is serving in these credible messenger roles, how can they?
Well, there's another meeting coming up. We're in the process of changing leaderships there. Captain Hooper, he's leaving, retiring. Lieutenant Weiner's gonna be taking his place. There's been, I'm not gonna sit here, I'm not gonna, try to fool you because I can see that you see right through it. Councilmember Majors, he's staring right at me, so I'm not gonna do that. But anyway, there's been some problems with it, snafus with it, but things are starting to turn the corner now, and we're gonna have the program up and running very, very soon. As far as the credible messengers, we would need people from the city here who know other city people, who understand what their needs are, and so we're really looking at that. And the next meeting that we have, hopefully, we'll just open it up, to any city resident that can come.
Okay, and how can one receive the information regarding the next meeting?
When I find out what it is, I will have them put it out there.
Okay. I think that's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Vice President Green.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for your detailed report. I'll keep it brief. Most of my questions were already asked. I will just say that I'm glad to see that we're looking for different funding sources through grants, but one of the biggest parts to any grant is actually administering the grant to ensure that you can continue to get grants. So especially when it comes to this GBI grant, I think that when it came to us, we asked a lot of questions about the pre-work being done. And I don't feel like that was really heard. I think it was heard, but it wasn't listened to. And I feel like a lot of that pre-work wasn't done. So that when we got to this point, knowing that hiring the project manager was going to be a snafu, I think that's something that was discussed in the process as well. And it kind of seems like when we got to that point, it was like, whoa, wow, this is an issue. And it's a surprise that we really shouldn't have been met with. So I look forward to seeing this come to fruition. I hope that we can get the extension, hope that we actually ask for it. Since it hasn't actually been asked for yet, you can get something you don't ask for. So when we get to that point, I hope that you guys can keep us informed. I would ask that it doesn't have to be coming down here formally to council, but it could be an email correspondence or something that on a monthly basis at minimum, you do keep us updated on what's going on with it. Because although the quarterly reports are nice, kind of seems like they're kind of repetitive and that we're working on it. But we're not seeing the progress that we need to see with the timeline that we know we have. So I look forward to a little more communication, whether it be email or just getting information to the city council clerk to let us know what's going on, so that we can be productive with this. And if you need any help from us, please feel free to reach out to us and ask how we can help, whether it's spreading the word for some of these credible messengers, spreading the word about the meetings coming up. I think that's very important. I would also hope that some of the CSAs and that division would be able to identify some of those credible messengers, and that even some of the people that were identified for the I can't even think of it right now, but for the board created with Bill 8, yes, for CLEAC, that some of those individuals will be able to help get some of this information across to residents, because it's very important that we get this program going. I know it's something that PCCD has wanted the city to do for a long time, and I really would hate for us not to be able to get it done when they've given us the funding. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. Thank you, gentlemen, for your report. There were a few spots there where I really wanted to tip my hat to the officers, especially with the resuscitation of a 3-year-old. That's something that needs to be talked about more often. To follow up on Councilman Major's question on the marketing, are we tracking where the respondents are coming from? That may help us with figuring out where to best spend our money on like your next round of marketing. And this was for your recruits, I should say.
Right. So it is tracked through police apps, and I don't have the information, I'm sorry. It is tracked when they fill out the application on policeapps.com. That's a couple of those questions that they ask in there, where they heard how they got it, whether that's through the advertising we've done or whether it's mouth to mouth.
Okay, and does it, but it's through an app, so it's not necessarily our questioning, so we can't say, did you see us on the bus, or did you see us on a billboard, or did you see us on?
They ask, true, correct.
Okay, because that could be helpful for his line of questioning, so then we know, like, if no one's responding through the bus ad, then we know we want to put that
Right.
same money more towards the billboards, because that's where we're getting our return. And then the other question I have is just with the cameras, as we were talking about integrating with the community. Are we actively reaching out to the community to say, hey, when you catch something, send it our way so that we can respond?
The big thing right now is the Ring doorbell cameras. And so as we're out on scene and the officers are there, whether it's a detective or a regular patrol officer, whoever's there, we're looking for cameras, Ring doorbells, and then we're actually trying to make contact with people, leave business cards to try to get the video. Again, checking for other cameras that they may have around. So we are reaching out for those cameras.
Okay, and just asking about the proactive part of that is we may catch things that you don't see if people are thinking to send it to you, because there are crimes, of course, that we know that are committed that are never caught in. And we may just have someone say, okay, well, the police are asking for this. Let's just send it to them because I saw X on my camera.
And we do get those as well.
Okay.
Somebody will, if they call in to report something, they can send links. So we do get them that way as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's everything that I had.
Thank you, Councilman Lawson. Did we find out, before I go to Councilwoman Rawls, if there was any conflict retaining like some of those Ring doorbell footages or getting residents to cooperate with that? Was there anything additional we had to do just to make sure we weren't impeding on like anyone unnecessarily? No? Okay, so if a resident wanted to submit something, they could just reach out. Okay, all right, awesome. Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez, and good evening to you both, and thank you for joining us. Most of my questions have been asked and answered, and comments that I was going to make too on the GVI grant were already made, and I think we all know what we want to see from it. So, we all look forward to that coming to fruition. The two questions that I did have, one was about the abandoned vehicles. I know usually I think we can call 311. It never works for me. It doesn't like my phone. So, and I know I think some other residents have issues too. So what number can we call for abandoned vehicle? Because I have one currently in front of mine.
So the easiest way, you could certainly call, easiest way would be email access, and that's Officer Wells. Obviously, if you don't have email access, I can get you his extension.
Yeah.
He fields, I can tell you, for the first hour of his day, he's doing nothing but answering emails and addressing phone calls or messages that are left for him. So it is, I can certainly, I can get you his extension.
Yes, because you just email that to all of us so we have it and we can share with the public as well. My last question, I actually was a resident's question with kind of two-part. With the weather getting hot outside, everybody's excited. we've talked about foot patrol before. What does that look like this summer with, I think we're up to complement in the department. So what does foot patrol look like, especially in our higher incident areas, or just foot patrol, just because let's get to know the neighborhood a little bit better?
So with the saturation details, there's foot patrols in those details when we're out and about. We're doing those more frequently. And again, as the weather gets warmer, obviously, I mean, district officers are also getting out and walking around.
Okay, and what goal is in mind when on foot patrol?
Goal is simply to meet the residents that you're, out there with and patrolling, to see what their needs are, if they need anything, to see how you can be a resource to them.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to update on, I know we've talked about it. And also with the dirt bikes, I know there's a lot of limitations, but is there anything in the works to say, this is how we're gonna at least try to get it under control? I mean, I know it's an issue, there's limitations, but.
That's a situation there where every city, across this country, they're experiencing these dirt bike riders. I will not allow my officers to chase them for a couple reasons. It endangers the general public. And if someone gets hurt, the city gets sued and we lose a whole lot of money.
I agree.
Because it's mostly juveniles doing it.
Mhm.
I'm not making excuses for them. And if we had an answer now, what I like to do and what we have done in the past is that we ask PSP for their chopper. When they see a helicopter up, they know that they cannot outrun that helicopter. And they just drop the dirt bikes and they just start running. The liability of always having a helicopter is big too, because it costs a lot of money to fly those things and you gotta pay the pilots. And so hopefully this summer we'll have PSP with their chopper up.
Okay. Have we looked into how, has there been a city who has been able to manage the issue? Because we're here to help too. I'm not just putting it on you all as a
Right,
police
right.
department. You can't do it alone. But is there any city who has handled it adequately that we can kind of use the techniques and strategies that they did to at least try to control it in a way? I don't know, build a dirt bike park. I don't know what the solution is, but do you know, or have you all researched what other cities have done?
We have researched, there's some cities that are pretty good at it, but they have a chase policy. We don't have a policy because, the insurance would be sky high and the city would lose.
Right.
So we're looking at other options. We're looking at drones and different things like that. Drones that have cameras and stuff on them. We're looking for the Ring doorbells for the neighbors help. We need the neighborhood people in order to stop this dirt bike stuff, and we need some parents, to step up and tell their kids, you cannot do that. That is very, very dangerous because it is so disheartening to me to see these kids zooming up and down the street, circling cars, almost getting hit. A couple of years ago, we had a nice young man who got killed out on 19th Street. And I just don't want to see that. That's why we do not chase it.
Okay. I know going forward, I want us all to be able to work together and try to find some solution for it. I know it's going to take a while, but just something to help
Yes.
comment.
Yes.
So.
Mr. Majors, I did want to say to you that we went to Philadelphia. We went to different colleges and recruited. We were at the farm show. We passed out flyers at gyms, at churches, and every place else. So just the buses weren't the only advertising thing.
No, I wasn't saying that was the only advertisement that you were doing. I recognize there are multiple ways to advertise, and I know that you all do events. I'm just talking about and getting the information that was mentioned earlier about the folks that are applying on police apps, where we're getting those applications in from will be helpful information. again, to me, it's just utilizing your advertising dollars in the most effective way. If we are going to, personally, I think in terms of getting folks to be involved in public safety positions, it's going to be difficult for those types of advertising. Sometimes those one-on-one conversations, them coming up to booths at career fairs, visiting colleges, individuals coming right out of a school that may want to be interested, that study criminal justice or looking for a job to serve the public in the public sector. Those impressions, to me, sometimes go along a further way than just having those advertisements on those. So again, it's wasn't a criticism of that use. It was just to say, if we're going to spend advertising dollars, let's make sure we're doing it the most effective way. And we just get with that data about who those applicants are, where they're coming in from. So we're using those dollars the most effective. Social media, LinkedIn, career fairs, et cetera, visiting our colleges, specifically our state-related state system, HBCUs in Pennsylvania and the surrounding area, just looking at that. So that information will be great if we can get where those applicants are coming in from. Thank you.
I can tell you this, sir, the most disheartening thing with me is that there's not a lot of city applicants coming in. They're surrounding me.
All right, thank you for that. Councilwoman Wells, you're all completed, all done? All right, thank you. I just had a brief question, Commissioner, with Officer Wells. I know his department is really small, and sometimes it could be days before he's even sent out to even speak about an abandoned vehicle or anything within his parameters. What are the chances of maybe expanding and getting him some help so residents, for instance, I had assisted a resident on 18th and Holly, and it was a few days before he could come out, and then it was really logistically, he was tied up as to what he can do because the vehicle has to be there but so long, and there's a few measures after. So what are the chances of getting him a bit more help so we can further the reach of his department?
Well, actually, if a complaint comes in, a district officer, uniform officer usually goes out there and, they will research the situation. But when it comes to abandoned vehicles, you have to ticket those vehicles. You have to put up a big sticker on them, and it has to be on there for 24 hours, 48 hours before we can even tow it. And that's the problem.
All right, thank you for that.
As far as getting Officer Wells some extra help, it'll depend on the technical service captain and my patrol captain if we can do that.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And I think drones could potentially be very effective against the dirt bike riding because it wouldn't put any officers at risk. And of course, creating more jobs because there's a lot of drone operators now coming right out of Harrisburg universities. That'd probably be awesome. Just a thought. Yeah, absolutely. I know one that just got accredited and she's all over the world, just operating drones, taking pictures of parrots in Florida and stuff. So it's a great, great position. But thank you, gentlemen, for your quarterly report. And if there's nothing further from the Bureau of Police, you guys are dismissed, and we will continue with the Bureau of Fire.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you, Chief Enterline?
Let me get situation. Good evening. I'm well, thank you.
Take your time.
Good to go.
All right. Whenever you are ready and set, you prepared to give an overview of your quarterly reports for the Bureau of Fire.
Sure, I'll just highlight a couple of things for the public that are in here, and I believe that we're publishing these online now. Is that correct? The good news, as we reported in the year of 2022, we had no fire deaths, and that continues the first quarter of 2023. And that is continuously attributed to that staffing, the response time, and the training of our firefighters. They do an exemplary job day in and day out for the citizens of the city. You will recall, we did have a fatality on the river, just 2 weeks ago. Another unfortunate, incident, but those, when we look at fire deaths, are not counted in. Anything that is, outside of a fire related is not counted in our totals for fire deaths. And that is how it's reported to, FEMA as well. We currently have 4 firefighters that are getting ready to graduate this Friday from HAC. They will begin their in-house training on Monday, May 8th, and that lasts about a month. And then once they're completed with that, they'll be hitting the street and serving the citizens on a daily basis. We continue to work with our mutual aid partners, and I must bring this up every time we talk because the number of mutual aid calls seems to continuously go up year after year. However, for the first quarter, we were down slightly. We only responded 49 times outside of the city of Q1 of 2023 versus 54 of Q1 of 2022. So just a very slight decline as far as mutual aid goes. We've been active in work at the Farm Show building, from the Farm Show itself in January to the Sportsman Show. That's something we started several years ago due to complaints that were received about overcrowding, blocked exits and things like that. So we have our folks up there on a daily basis walking through to make sure that everything is as it was when it was inspected by the fire inspector. And we have a great working relationship with those folks at the Farm Show complex. They're very open to us. I think probably one of the things we're most excited about, we're implementing, in fact, is the first training is tomorrow for some of our fire officers, a cloud-based scheduling module for all of our firefighters and overtime and things like that. We've been doing a multifaceted paper system for decades, and none of the systems that we've had in the past 20-some years I've been here have been able to interpret the way we do our scheduling and everything. Currently, there's 4 different things that have to be filled out to make the scheduling work right. We're gonna go to one app, so the firefighters will have an app on their phone, and so they'll know where they're working via cell phone. They'll be able to mark off sick via cell phone. They'll be able to request holidays via cell phone. They will be called for overtime on backfill shifts via cell phone through that app. So it'll be very efficient, and it eliminates that human error of going down through a rotating list that is rotated by a computer system that's 40 years old. And that has caused a lot of issues between labor and management over the last 15 or 20 years. And we finally have come with a solution that will work and be productive and put the paper behind us, if you will. That's really one of the last things that we have that is paper-based that requires so much interpersonal interaction to change things. And if you don't change one, the other 3 don't get changed. So we're looking forward to that. The one thing we did do in reviewing call statistics for the last couple of years, our false alarms are absolutely astronomical. Council does have in the fire code a fine structure, which we bill for through Mike Hughes's office on a monthly basis. And unfortunately, what we found is these folks are just paying, especially the big businesses, are just paying those fines and moving on. And it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what those fines look like. So what we've done through the fire code, we're able to request inspection reports and things like that. So I sent out a letter to the top, I think it was 56 letters we sent out, requesting a copy of their most current fire alarm inspection, as well as their plan to reduce the number of fire alarms that they're experiencing in their property. We have had an overwhelming response back from that. I've had property owners stop me on the street. In fact, as we were on 6th Street at a demolition project, and I had a gentleman stop and he said, "Chief, I've been meaning to call you. I want to talk to you about this. I feel horrible. You guys have to come out to these." And so it's working. Those numbers are starting to get down ever so slightly, but I believe as we continue with their maintenance and with some of their upgrades that they have to do now, that's gonna drop that number down significantly for us. So that's a good thing, because when we look at incidents, and I've included it in the last several reports, is overlapping incidents. Those numbers continue to climb up. Overlapping incidents means we have more than one emergent event occurring at the same time. So we're diverting fire trucks to multiple different places instead of focusing on the one emergent incident at the, that needs probably the most attention. Looking at budget, right now, we're currently in a pretty good position. We are over budget on two things, which are pretty hard to project for accounting, and that is Medicare reimbursements for retirees and our annual sick leave buyback. But those numbers don't, I'm not concerned about those from this point. I did attach the first quarter budget analysis, and we're trending at about 25%. So if you look at 4 quarters of the year, 25% in the first quarter, we're pretty much on track. So we did also receive on good news, we received a $23,950 grant from FEMA for purchase of new fire hose. And this was something we actually had submitted, I believe it was 3 years ago. And we thought we were not going to get any money. And Rebecca Vollmer actually just received the email back in mid-March, I believe it was, that we were indeed going to be awarded this $23,950. So that'll buy new fire hose for the 2 new pumpers that we have coming in that will be arriving in January of 2024.
Awesome. Great work from Ms. Vollmer again.
Yeah, she does excellent work for us. From emergency management, I won't dive down too much into this, but we've been extremely active in emergency management things, doing a lot of tabletop exercises, not only with our partners at Dauphin County, but with our downtown working group, specifically with Harristown Enterprises. I was able to be on a national symposium with several folks from the county, myself, and Harristown, discussing our downtown working group initiative that we meet usually quarterly and discuss some type of emergent topic that affects businesses, looking at the business owners and how can we better serve you from an emergency management standpoint. And that was well received. And it's interesting that we are one of only a few regions in the country that have such a group to work with. So we were pretty excited and honored to be asked to participate. We continue to monitor the weather and river conditions and all that fun stuff. Obviously, as we look, the river's going to crest just over action stage, but there's no concerns about flooding this weekend. And that was due to the significant rain event that we saw over the weekend. Some future projects where we're going, the Tower 1 Seagrave is completed. We were out for final inspection with that. It is now at the dealership down in Lancaster County. Council will have a budget reallocation for that, and it was already allocated, but the purchase order just was not rolled forward into 2023. So that was ordered in 2022, I believe it was. I think it's a 2022 purchase order. So that'll be coming down. I think that is on your agenda for next week, if I'm not mistaken. And so we awarded on the grant side of things, again, 2 grants, and these we apply for out of the fire chief's office, directly from the fire commissioner's office. We got $15,000 for the fire bureau itself, for new tools and equipment for the new fire apparatus. And then the Mount Pleasant Fire Company, one of the volunteers under our umbrella, was awarded $15,000. And that's going to be used for some more modifications to the fire station at 13th and Howard Streets, which is one of our main volunteer fire stations still within the city. We continue to work with Fireman's Relief. We have a great relationship, but Fireman's Relief, that board has totally changed over the last 3 years, more specifically the last 6 months, and look forward to a very strong working relationship as far as partial financing for a lot of the tools and equipment needs that we have for the city. We are working closely, continue to work closely with codes on a plethora of different things. we do like to see new buildings going in, because we know that they're protected and we're getting top quality housing. We also like to see some buildings come down because we get to use those for destructive training. We've been working with a lot of the developers, actually most recently yesterday, we just got another one on William Street that we'll be able to use for destructive training, which is something that you don't get to do very often. And so we're always excited to see those opportunities come up. We continue to work with solutions or, possible solutions to illegal boarding houses, condemned properties, and then demolition. That's we're working very closely with codes and legal, and those are obviously thorns in our side when it comes to the protection of the public, especially when we're dealing with the condemned, vacant, and derelict buildings that are just eyesores, not only for the residents, but are open havens for mischief and unfortunately fires that affect those neighbors in the various neighborhoods across the city. You'll note we are in the middle of our application process for the civil service list for 2023-24, ending in 2025. So we have, hopefully, as you drive across the city, you will see those. Unfortunately, I had to compete with all of the election signs that are out there for a plethora of different offices. But I'm hoping that folks look at our signs instead of the re-election signs. And we actually have a QR code on those. I like to personally put those out. So I spent several hours, many hours over the last week sticking those in. And it's always great to talk to the residents and try and give them that one-on-one. We put a Facebook post out that was shared almost 400 times just over the weekend. And giving them that personal, if you need something, call me, let's talk. I don't want you talking to HR, I don't want you talking to anybody. Call me directly and let's have a conversation. Let me tell you why our job is the best job in the city of Harrisburg, why the profession of a firefighter is a career and not just a job, and why we need you to join our force. So we've fielded, much to the chagrin of my administrative assistant, about 30 calls since Monday morning. So that's been great. One of the guys that called today is somebody that I mentored several years ago in the junior program, who's since moved out of the area, and he's excited to turn his application in. So we're excited about that. Other than that, that's about all I have, pending your questions.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, first and foremost, Chief. Open up the floor to my far right, Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you. Thank you. And good evening, Chief Interline. Thank you for coming and thank you for your wonderful report. Very detailed. It really didn't leave me with any questions. You pretty much answered everything I was kind of thinking about. So no, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will interrupt 1 second if I may. If you do need a yard sign for the Fire Bureau, I do have some available. Let me know and I will come put them in your yard.
Please put one in my yard. Put two, because it's like long enough you can put two. So go ahead.
Right, Councilman Lawson.
All right, thank you, Chair Rodriguez. And I don't have any questions, but being one of the people putting out one of those signs, I do want to tell you that your sign placement skills are amazing. There were several that I wanted to place a sign and I said, I can't put it there because the chief already has a sign right there. So if you don't want to fight fires, you can place political signs. That's a job.
I think it would be a conflict of interest. I don't involve myself in politics, but maybe when I retire, I could consult with everybody.
There we go. Political campaign manager and the line. Thank you. Vice President Green.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. I think your report was really thorough and I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Madam President.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Congratulations on your participation in the National Resilience Virtual Summit as a presenter. That's pretty cool. And it's nice to hear about the countywide work group to ensure our businesses are exercising safety. So thank you. I hope that The participants of the summit found the information sharing to be helpful and perhaps that they could scale the work group in their local municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Madam President. Councilman Majors?
Thank you, and thank you for your report. As always, it's very, the overview is always greatly appreciated. It's very, concise. That's one question, that I did have, just with respect to, the false alarms. I know that's a big issue, and it makes up, about a quarter of the, incidents that you have listed here. Do you think we should look at revising, would you recommend maybe looking at revising our ordinance around that in terms of the fee, or do you think we should look at, commercial versus residential? You're having a lot of issues with larger businesses in terms of them just being more than willing to pay the fee versus working to address the issue, or do you offer any other services to help them potentially address the issue around false alarms?
Excellent question. We just increased those fees several years ago, and it was maybe a half dozen years ago, which to a number that is higher than anywhere else in the Commonwealth, quite frankly.
Right.
And that didn't, that really didn't help, right?
Okay.
So I think where we're going next, and again, we've seen a very slight decrease. I want to look at an online self-inspection, either inspection reports online or there's several of them out there that other municipalities are starting to use. And we have one fire inspector, so it's very difficult to visit, and you just can't. It's nearly impossible to get to the restaurants and schools, let alone everything else we have to deal with. So we're looking a couple of things. We're looking with the deputy chief of training. We started a training program where we're going to be able to start sending our engine companies out to do inspections to start to look at these systems a little bit more in depth. Not only the alarm systems, but other things, life safety issues in the buildings. That I think is going to help. The self-inspection is going to help because they're going to be forced to report that stuff.
Right, okay.
And I think, a lot of it is, the one gentleman I talked to didn't realize how much it costs to send a fire truck to to an incident. So when you lay that out and how that takes away from helping Mrs. Smith that really needs help, I think that started to have a resounding effect. Unfortunately, we're not seeing it in numbers, but those letters only went out in February or March. What was the date on it? I think it was March.
Okay, so more recently.
Yeah, so I think we just need to look at it. Let's see how we do the next 2-3 quarters, and maybe come back to it. It's just like it's a codes issue, and Ann can tell you in code it's so difficult when it comes to compliance with codes. The court system is against us, unfortunately, and property owners. Those that don't care, those out of towners that we so often talk about, it's easier to write that check for $1,000 than it is to send somebody out to fix the system.
Okay. Well, I hope that self-reporting system, at least as we try to get that on board, will work. And as we continue to upgrades with our internal infrastructure, that maybe, helping that will help maybe GIS map it, get some additional information so we can better coordinate. So, the other things I won't discuss because of my employment, but I do think the other issue around the amount of mutual aid that our fire department does provide is the right thing to do, but there needs to be a larger conversation on how to deal with that. I know you had conversations last year that they have to revisit, but I won't discuss those now. But thank you, and thank you, Chair Rodriguez.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Daniels. Did you say it into the mic, please?
She doesn't have any questions.
She has no questions. There's no further questions, Chief Enderline, thank you. We will proceed. We have the Bureau of Codes. Ms.
And if
Ann.
you could
Thank you,
just,
Chief.
yeah, and if anybody that wants those signs, if you forward them to Mr. Parker, your address, I will stick those tomorrow.
Thank you. Director Montgomery, thank you for joining us.
Evening, City Council, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Could you bring the mic a bit closer?
Closer. Good.
Yes. And whenever you're prepared to begin, to give your overview of your quarterly reports.
Yes.
Thank you.
So as far as the revenue goes for the first quarter in 2023, we're actually 200,000 more than we were last year at this time. It does seem though, since April, it's starting to decline as far as the permits that are being taken out. So far this year, building permits in the first quarter, residential, there was 452, commercial, there was 75 permits taken out. There's projects that are in the process, 225 North Street. It's a third phase of the Catholic Educational Building. I'll just go over a couple of them. As 1122 Green Street, it used to be the old Salvation Army. There's 16 units almost completed there. 600 block of Woodbine, 4 new townhouses. They are almost completed. That was part of the YMCA project. 415 Market Street, the train station, the second floor is being remodeled for event use. 108-112 Walnut Street, 8 apartments are being rehabbed. Department update, working with Hillary Green. She's the procurement services and compliance manager and seeking additional demolition contractors. So it's not the same ones that we pick from all the time. The codes office continues to update applications, making adjustments when necessary to better assist the public, making it easier for the applications to be filled out. We are also attaching progressive inspection checklists with the permits when they come to pick them up, so they know when to call for us for progressive inspections. Worked with Matt Maisel on to create a job flyer for a codes officer position. They were hand delivered to different businesses throughout the city. Nelva, the health officer, actually helped also with dropping them off. It was Tri-County was one of the places, Horning Hardware, Salvation Army, the library, a couple restaurants. And actually a background check is currently being done to fill the vacant position of the code officer. We are evaluating the website for any additional information that would help the public and or any corrections that we find. We continue to work with police and the fire department to address nuisance properties. The codes department is actively involved with public works in addressing trash, debris, and illegal dumping. The challenges for our department is the illegal rooming houses. It is a great concern. They're very much fire hazard with everybody living in their own room, you know, with heating. It's just an overload of the electrical system. And we're lucky, I think, so far that nothing bad has happened. Because it'd be our fire department too that goes in to try to put it out and save the people. Also, a large challenge for us is Governor Square that continues to be a challenge. We have, you know, people that put in complaints and we have to address them, and it's very frustrating that things don't get done.
Director Montgomery, whose position would it be to ensure that things at Governor Square are getting done?
The code officer that handles most of that is Mike Cobble.
Who would be instructing the code officer?
That's me.
Okay.
Yeah, I assign the any complaints that come in.
Because I'm almost certain you and I have had this conversation, and I know several residents have called in And we were even at the point where some buildings were condemned and we still had residents living in them. So I guess I want to ask, to what extent do we allow it to go before there is something we can do?
So if they continue to allow the person to live there, we can't remove the tenant from that apartment. You know, what we can do is continue to write citations against the owners, against the management for allowing occupancy of a condemned property.
Really? Okay, all right. Thank you for that. I'm sorry for interrupting. Since we brought up Governor Square, I know there's a lot of residents struggling with that right now. Near and dear to my heart as well. I know a lot of council members are really concerned about what's happening up there. Is there any updates or change of management? Last time I went up, they had citations this high. I don't think it's that effective at this point. What can we do to move forward? How can we assist?
I think they're looking for someone to buy it, but that's not our department. The most we can do is the power of the pen, is to write citations.
Is there, when there's a lack of payment, is there follow-up court procedures, anything that may help the residents at all?
We are looking into, when we write citations, why it becomes inactive. It's as if it's not being delivered to the person we are citing. We don't understand why that is happening with the courts, why that citation becomes inactive. But as far as Governor Square goes, they're receiving them.
I mean, even the maintenance, I drive by pretty frequently, grass is tall.
Yeah,
Residents
it's
still are
frustrating. 'Cause that-
complaining, you know, it could really be a damper on the community. And when the community feels like there's a damper, there's not too much buy-in from the residents after, you know, we want to maintain the best integrity for our neighborhoods and try to ensure that work is getting done. So anything I know I could do as chair, I'm willing to help. I just don't know where do we go from here with that.
Yeah, we have written for, we send out notices first and ask for that to be addressed. And if it's not addressed, that's when we go to citations. But yeah, it's becoming an issue now with the high grass and weed.
All right, thank you for that.
And that doesn't cost really much to address that issue, but even that is not being.
I agree. I agree. I'm just asking, as the director of codes, do you have any plan to move forward? Is there any more firm, I guess, not punishment, but any way we can hold them accountable for what's being done? I just wanted to see if you had any more answers than where we were during the previous quarterly report.
I don't have any.
Were you about to speak? I'm sorry.
Right, so I can step in here and say that Ann's department has issued several citations and they are at this point at Dauphin County Courthouse level. Which means that the Law Bureau has stepped in and the Law Bureau and the city are being represented. And Ann's department is always very helpful. They show up and they say, here are the citations, here are the issues, and they work closely with the Law Bureau to resolve those. So I can tell you that that is pending litigation.
No, I think we understood that there's pending litigation. I just was referring to more of, is there any further action we could do, or we're just sitting ducks and the residents have to kind of deal with what's at hand?
I don't think anybody is suggesting that we're sitting ducks. What I'm suggesting is that the
It's
court
been- it's-
process takes a place.
Been a pretty prolonged process, though. This has been going on for about 2 years.
I understand your frustration and that is part of the court process.
The residents are highly frustrated. I'm just trying to speak on their behalf.
If we could just let everyone finish speaking before we speak, thank you.
And what I can tell you about the fines are that it is a progressive scale. And so once you get in front of the judge, it's up to them to decide what each citation is going to be cited at. And that's what I can offer.
Thank you. You can continue, Director Montgomery. Thank you.
Yeah, that was pretty much my update for the first quarter.
All right.
I am completed, yeah.
All right. Councilwoman Daniels, do you have any questions?
I don't expect an answer right now, but I would like to know how many citations were issued with the corporate multiplier. So I'll just come by your office and see
How
if I
many
could get those
citations for this quarter?
Yeah, with the corporate multiplier. So I think you'll have to do like a very specific search to find it.
Okay.
Councilman Majors?
Thank you. And thank you for the report. I think we're all very concerned about what's been an ongoing issue at Governor Square. Particularly as I know all of us have spoken with the residents there and the living conditions that they are faced with. Do we have the ability to work with Harrisburg Housing Authority or any other housing within the city to provide them another location to be? I know that the court cases have been pending. We know Governor Square has, there's a lot of pending legal issues with them outside of just the multiple citations. At one point, there was an individual coming in here attempting to make purchase. I don't know what the current status of that. There may be another potential active buyer, but are there any other things I know that we can do to help the residents of Governor Square that are in very harsh living conditions from a code's perspective?
From a code's perspective, I'm not aware of anything else that we can do, except for continue to address the issues that come up. We just had one where the woman had no hot water and no heat. So she called UGI, but they had the basement boarded. So she had to take down that board to be able to allow UGI in. And everything was disconnected inside. It was never installed properly.
Okay, so
From there, we write a citation.
okay,
We send a notice. We ask for, but okay.
okay, thank you. I don't know if this is going to be more directed for you, Director Montgomery, or for legal. With the number of complaints that are continuing to mount, the residents that are expressing frustration, this specific condition of things being boarded, are we looking at elevating it and taking all of our information and maybe going to the Attorney General or another body that can take additional legal action against the management of Governor Square? That's something, where am I getting into? I just want to try to be mindful of how I say things as well.
I'm not sure if that can be done or not. I know when they went to Dauphin County, they took all the citations and said they were going to put that back into the pot so that they could use, instead of paying for the citations, they could use that to fix the building.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know where that's at.
Okay.
I don't know. Still,
Okay, thank you. May need to have another conversation offline with some additional attorneys that can get those residents all they need, because if the folks are still paying to live there, because I'm sure despite the conditions, the owners of Governor Square aren't providing, are still going to be collecting rent from folks. We have to figure out something that we can do to try to help them. So I think that's a larger conversation, just past codes, but we need the administration to help step in. Council, we've been having conversations, but this is past just council. We need a full of city government to help address this issue. Thank you, Chair Rodriguez.
Thank you, Councilman Majors. Madam President?
Thank you. My questions are personnel related, and then a question about the website review. During the budget hearings, you noted that an administrative data analyst vacancy would be filled during the first quarter of 2023. And then an administrative assistant 2 vacancy was pending during the budget hearing. So I was just curious to note if that vacancy has been filled as well.
The administrative two was filled. There has been. And then we had, once that was filled, it was administrative one that was needed filled. And we just filled that position about a month ago.
Okay,
As far as the data analyst, that was actually, I didn't realize it was scheduled to be hired in April.
okay,
So HR is working up on the job description. That should be out probably very short.
okay. I'll follow up next quarter. The next question is related to the website review. Is there an opportunity for members of the public or for residents to chime in on the website for accessibility or information that they may be looking to retrieve there?
So I don't know that it's out there for the public to make a comment, but they certainly can.
Okay.
And there's times we do get comments from the public, well, we couldn't find this or we couldn't find
Right.
that. So we tried to make note of that and then address that issue.
Okay, so how can anyone that would like to share a comment regarding the website share that commentary with
They
you?
could either email me or call me.
Okay, you mind sharing your email address just so everyone
Sure.
is aware?
A Montgomery, AMONTGOMERY at harrisburgpa.gov.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm not being dismissive of Governor Square at all. I just know that it is a much larger issue and there are multiple entities involved. So know that I agree with Councilman Majors. I think that we need to have another conversation about next steps. It's been some time since our last discussion and we know that some variables have changed since then. So I look forward to that conversation and trying to find some resolve for the residents. Thank you.
Yeah, there's actually about 20 vacancies we're aware of up there. They've been gutted and just left. It's a bad situation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Vice President Green.
Thank you. I don't have too many questions. Some of them have already been asked and answered. I will say, just as you're reviewing over the website, I'd like to see some of the forms that are on there become fillable and able to be submitted online. I think that will be easier for the public, especially some of like the building and fire zoning permits, that they can actually fill it out and submit it online, especially as we're increasing our technology here at the city, so that people don't have to come down, get the paper application and fill it out, or either print it out and then bring it in.
Understood, but we don't accept credit cards over, to pay for those building permits. Then it would either have to be mailed in or brought in because it's either check or money.
Okay, all right. Maybe we can look at increasing our technology in that way too, just to
Yes.
make it more convenient
Yes.
for residents, so that they're able to do the process online. And it might also make it more convenient for your office to be able to process things online as well, rather than having as much paperwork.
Yes, and the complaint forms can be done from online.
Yes, that's the only
Yes, so-
form that I found that you can actually do online. All the rest you have to print out and bring in. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson.
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. And thank you, Ms. Montgomery, for your report. And I'm just asking a little bit more about Governor Square and not much, because I don't want to beat on a dead horse, but are they currently paying these citations? Or are we issuing them, there's no payment? And then this may be a question for legal. At that point, are we able to go after individuals because they're not being paid?
So it's not, I mean, it is that they haven't paid the citation, but part of the process is they've appealed the citation. And so that is the level that's where we're at.
Gotcha. Okay, that helps me there. And then with the illegal boarding houses. And I think with our end of year meeting, we discussed some of the nuances there, why it's not as easy as just boarding everything up and putting everyone on the street. Are we finding ways to either get rid of the bad actors or find ways to make the buildings more habitable? I think there was an issue. People were concerned about putting more people on the street that can only live in the boarding houses. And that's one of the reasons why we haven't just shut everything down. But are we finding any way to find a medium for the houses that are still occupied? Basically a way to help people make them safer.
Well, it's a single family home. So they can't use it. That's an illegal use by renting out each room. To be able to rent out rooms like that, it would be a rooming house, and then it would have to be sprinklered and have a water system there to put the fires out.
All right, because they're still persisting and
Because they make so much money.
Right.
So it's hard to keep up with. You shut it down and then they take it back to what it's supposed to be. We go back to inspect it and it is, all the locks are off the doors, all the beds in the basement or the dining rooms are gone. But they're just at another place. And then it goes back to it eventually.
all right, do we have any mechanisms to prevent them from going back after they've been caught so many times doing this? Such as like a condemnation or something along that line.
Again, it would be citations.
All right. Okay, well, thank you. That's
Okay.
what I have.
Thank you. My apologies, Councilwoman Ross. I just wanted to ask a question. What would be the matter of difference between, let's say, a nonprofit that has maybe a re-entry home that's completely within the guidelines of the laws? Is it just the sprinkler system that brings them up to compliance that the others are lacking?
Well, it depends how large it is.
Okay.
How tall it is. You may need 2 ways out if it's more than 2 floors.
Okay, so every case would be different then. Okay, all right, thank you, Councilwoman Ross.
Thank you. Good evening, Director Montgomery. Thank you for being here. Most of my questions have been asked and answered, especially with Governor Square. I know that's a bigger piece, so that's just going to be a process. That's it.
Apologies, thank you. Any further questions from council? All right, thank you so
No,
much.
thank you.
Absolutely. Director Montgomery, thank you. If possibly your office can get Councilwoman Daniels that information she was requesting, that'd be appreciated. If there's no further questions, you are free to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Absolutely. Continuing on our quarterly reports, we will have Ms. Nelva from the Health Office. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to check first and foremost. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, great, thanks. Did anyone get the report already? Anyone need a hard copy?
I'll take a hard copy if you do have extras.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm just used to something tangible. I like just holding.
I'm old school like that too. I need to hold on to.
Thank you for that, though. And whenever you're ready, you can proceed with your quarterly report.
Right, well, my name is Nelva Wright and with the Health Office. And first and foremost, just want to again, thank the commissioner and Ms. Montgomery for their support. You know, we are part of the codes office and a dotted line to the commissioner, so I appreciate the continued partnership. Just want to start with a new endeavor for the Harrisburg Health Office. And you might have seen our new, our initial edition of the newsletter that we're going to be producing. Initially, it's going to be bi-monthly. So this issue you're looking at is the May-June issue. And we're just starting off bi-monthly initially, and we're going to reevaluate this in September to see if we're going to go monthly. This project is fully funded by the grant awards that I've received over the past years, and will be grant funded through 2024. So it is something that we're going to continue to do. The basically the newsletter is broken down in several goals in mind. First and foremost, to highlight our local businesses. So these three new restaurants have opened up recently, got inspected, passed all the requirements and so forth, and operational. They're very, very excited about being highlighted. So we want to continue to encourage not only obviously healthy food practices, but also to encourage businesses to come and join us here in the city of Harrisburg and be successful.
Have you tried the food yet, Ms. Nelson?
I've actually have had Sauce Boss across the river.
Okay.
Because she does have another location. So I have not tried her here, but I am familiar with the other location.
Awesome.
So, but I'm looking forward to it. She's very skilled in, what she's been doing. So I have a pretty good confidence it's going to be a nice place to go.
Yep.
So also part of the goals for the health office is to maintain those things. I've always come up here and talk about these retail standards from the FDA. And since we've met the community engagement standard, we have to continue to maintain the standard, which means part of this newsletter will be geared towards the community. So there's going to be 3 focuses for the newsletter at this point. It's going to be about economic development and restaurant development. It's going to be professional and scientific, if you will, and also community-based. So for that reason, and also overall health and wellness. So that reason, you'll see the mental health, you'll see recipes for the community. You'll also see professional articles. This one is talking about the new sesame allergy. There is now the big 9 as opposed to the big 8. There's been new science that has determined that sesame is going to join the list of allergic items that could be in anyone's food at this point. So restaurant personnel need to be highly aware of that. And we have included a link in the newsletter for resources so that the professionals can go right to the website and get the information they need in regards to the any changes in the FDA guidelines, food code, et cetera. So it's going to have those 3 prongs. Right now, it just had my face, but we're going to be adding in the other pictures. The guys didn't have any pictures of themselves, but we have Anthony Russo. That's I'm like, well, where's the rest of us? But Anthony Russo has joined our staff. I think the last time we met, he was getting ready to come on, and there were some issues down in York, and so he stayed on longer, and we were having some issues getting him on board here for whatever reason. So he's here. He's been working now for the last month or so.
Great.
Yeah. So
How's he doing?
He's doing great. He's
Awesome.
doing great. Again, we've been doing a lot of joint introduction stuff, going to calls together and just kind of getting some things together with that. He's very experienced, so it's been a great help. He just had cataract surgery.
Wow.
So he's been out for the last couple of weeks, but we've been in close contact, and he's ready to get started. After next week, he'll be back on there. And what we've basically have done as far as just kind of getting on board as far as a strategy as to how we're going to be attacking some of these inspections, because it's been difficult for one person. So now we're kind of playing catch up. And what I've asked, what we've strategized, it would be John Nelson, Anthony Russo, and myself. And John is basically focused on very low-level inspections, because he is our social media director and kind of quasi does inspections on the side. He has been trained, but not to the extent where he could do anything very, very difficult. So he's kind of a helping hand. I have him targeted at this point to look at the schools because they've been kind of very low key because they haven't had the full operational kitchens because of COVID. So I feel comfortable with sending him into the schools. We built a great rapport with the liaison from SFE, who is supplying the schools with their lunch programs. So it's really right now still, a lot of the bag lunches and so forth. So he's very comfortable dealing with that staff and doing those low-level inspections. Some of the low-level daycares he's been doing, and primarily doing mobile food units at some of the festivals. He's been helping me in those areas. So that will continue to kind of be his focus and increasing his input by obviously helping me edit the newsletter. So that's kind of like where his bailiwick will be. For Anthony, at this point, our goal is to have all of the Asian and specialty restaurants done by June 1st. All of these schools, all of the daycares, and most of the supermarkets as well. It's just some of the targeted areas that we're going to look at first. And then we'll kind of roll back and kind of interfeed all the corner stores and different things as we kind of focus on these core areas. So that's kind of like how our strategy is going to go as far as inspections. Any type of complaint takes priority. So if there's a complaint, that's handled right away. Great. So I actually recently got a complaint about a nail salon. We don't do nail salons, but I went in there anyway. So I'm open to other businesses. I'm primarily dealing with food, but if it's something of a health hazard in some way, this was a bathroom issue, I'll be more than happy to go in and address it as best I can. In that particular case, the state takes priority because they give like barbers and nail salons the licensing, but I can be of assistance if there's a situation like that. So if there is someone who has a problem with something that's not necessarily a restaurant, they can still reach out to me, and either I will connect them with the right person or I will try to manage it as best I can.
Ms. Neville, just for the record, could you let residents know the best way to get a hold of you or your office if they need to?
Absolutely. My office phone number is 717-255-6563. My email is N as in Nancy, V as in Victory, Wright, WRIGHT @harrisburgpa.gov. So now I'll go over some of the financials. As I've talked about in some of the other meetings that I was blessed and fortunate enough to get, some major money from the feds in regards to grants. And this year, we were able to I've completed all of 2022 submissions and got reimbursements. So out of the $70,000, there was a $70,000 allocation, a $3,000 allocation, a $20,000 allocation, a $3,500 allocation, and a $7,500 allocation. So all of those are active grants. We basically got a reimbursement. The strategy was to use the smaller grants first, because the grant of the $70,000 allocation is a portion of a $213,000 allocation that ends in 2024. So the strategy for me with the budget management was to use the smaller grants first and let the larger grants roll over, because I have the ability to roll those dollars into everything until December 31st, 2024. So by using the smaller grants first, it left us with a net effect of about $60,000 on the $70,000 grant. The other grants were basically zeroed out. So the $3,000 grant for inspections, improvement was zeroed out and paid, submitted, paid, and reimbursed. The equipment grant for $3,500 was submitted, was paid, and reimbursed. The $20,000 special project grant was submitted for $18,309. It was paid and reimbursed. The other education grant, training and education for $7,500 was submitted and reimbursed for $1,800. So basically the only money we didn't get a chance to take advantage of was the remainder of the last education grant for $7,500. But the other dollars will roll into 2023, 2024. So we're looking pretty good, basically, if you look at it financially. I have been speaking with some of you in regards to maybe looking at different types of projects to implement with those fundings. The guidelines basically have to be, there always has to be a component of education as far as food safety. There always has to be a component of professionalism, so it needs to be industry-wide information, and it has to be some communication to the public. So those are the parameters for using these dollars. It has to be public, it has to be professional, and it has to be safety. What else? I want to also acknowledge that I was part of a poster session at the Consumer Food Safety Education Conference in Alexandria, Virginia. That was back in March. I will be attending the Food Safety Summit. It's the 25th anniversary this year, and I will be volunteering there. It's in Chicago in about a week, so I'll be doing that. It's an annual event. I'm part of the Penn State Health patient navigation team for the Cancer Center, so that will be part of the ongoing activities. So the semester is ended. They just invited me to join them again next semester. So we will be talking about food safety in the compromised patient. We did safe meal prep classes at the YMCA. There's going to be some Serve Safe sponsorship classes coming up that we're working on. And we're also updating the database in conjunction with the newsletter and updating our invoice processing and our budgetary management system. So going to continue doing that. Let me see. Department activity, just again, we've really been focusing on coming up with written materials and multilingual. So I had a lot of materials that were already being provided in Spanish, but now there's a new database that came out, and it's including Asian languages, you know, and also Arabic and some other different dialects. So I downloaded all those, and currently Brenda in the printing department is printing up some of those materials for me. Another area of development, since there was a lot going on with the train derailments, you know, and different things coming from OSHA and that kind of environment, there's been a lot of cross discussions for, you know, with food safety and with emergency management and those types of situations. So that was another topic that's been coming up a lot at some of the national meetings. And there's a class at HAC that some of my colleagues are thinking about taking, and it's basically OSHA 101. It just talks about OSHA, what it is, how it works, you know, really, because I don't really know a lot. And so I kind of was at a loss when they were talking about some of these side effects and, you know, the ramifications of something like a train derailment on the food supply. So I'm looking to, you know, speak to the commissioner about maybe joining them and getting this OSHA thing straight, so I can kind of speak intelligently about what people are doing and how they're being proactive. So that's something that might be coming up. Gosh, I'm trying to think of anything else. Basically, our number of inspections have been pretty steady. There's been a few more with the implementation of Tony. I'm finding that there's a lot more revisits, you know, because now there's more time. He's able to put more time in. I'm able to put more time in. So, you know, now we're a little more stringent, I guess, you know, when you got two people that can go in and actually kind of bounce off each other. You know, I'm letting a lot less go, you know, than I used to, because I know I got somebody that can come in behind me and kind of keep the flow going. So we've talked about that. And also I've already asked Tony about sitting down with Mike Hughes, because one of the things we've been looking at is a report that comes out as far as the payments for licensing. So if there is a restaurant or food entity that we go to and they're on the list and we look at our spreadsheet and they owe for taxes, or if they owe for the health license, we can't really, technically we could shut them down, you know, but I don't think we get to that point. Usually, so far, it's been like, look at this sheet, you owe $300. When are you going to pay it? You need to call Mike, you know. And so I've gotten some feedback from Mike that that's been working pretty well. That, you know, when people say they're coming, because I always say, if you don't come in, I'm gonna have to shut you down, you know. So far it's been an effective tool to kind of just go there and say, show them the paper, say you owe this money. And so far it's, you know, we've gotten some good some real positive feedback on that. So I appreciate being able to service and help out the tax enforcement office in that area.
You feel that's been pretty effective, letting them know like, hey, listen, we could shut you down, but you have the option to pay. We want to give you some grace. And you find that they come in majority of the time and make the payments.
100% of the time
Oh,
so
that's
far,
awesome. That's
so far.
awesome.
And the only deviance was someone who owed a lot and came in to make payment arrangements as opposed to paying the full amount.
But that
And
was
that's
still-
fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was
Absolutely.
totally fair.
Yep.
So I was like, hey, you know, better than nothing. Let's talk, let's work it out. So it worked out okay.
Awesome.
As far as joint inspections, that's another thing I've been doing more of. Matt McKinley is the commercial code inspector, and also Bruce. Henry Bruce is also doing some of the joint inspections with me. So the way we've been working at lately is that with mixed use buildings, there's a lot of restaurants with apartments on top, you know, upstairs and so forth. So we try to coordinate our visits, you know, and it's a little difficult because, you know, the code inspector is not allowed to just walk in where I can kind of just show up. They need to really coordinate. So we kind of got around that by having the code inspector come with me, but not necessarily write anything up. Come as an extra set of eyes and just say, okay, you know, I'm going to look out. I'm going to make the appointment to do the, you know, the code inspection. And when I do that, I know, you know, he will know what he wants to look at or what he saw that is, you know, an issue for him when he sets the appointment to actually go in. We did have a complaint house on her street business, and, you know, combination that kind of trumps that because it was some criminal, you know, some police activity going on. So that was one where we just went in and it wasn't, you know, it's normal protocol. So that's about all that's going on. You know, again, as always, I'm open, you know, I speak to many of you about that. I don't see you guys a lot, you know, and I'm kind of always whatever, but, you know, anything that you're thinking about. I know Councilwoman Daniels had talked about, you know, some of the food desert issues, you know, that is always ongoing. You know, so that's something we can always talk about. I work with Camp Curtin United, you know, so they have, you know, things that they're working on, you know, a lot of the things Governor Square. I mean, there's a lot of community folks that are doing some things. I try to partner with them. The only other thing that I'm doing that's kind of off is that with the airport, I'm excited that Susquehanna or HIA is looking at doing some artwork. If you've ever been to HIA, Harrisburg International, I'm the treasurer on the board there. There's a lot of white space. And me and one of the other board members, this woman who has been an aviator forever, she's like Amelia Earhart on steroids, you know, this lady is amazing. And she's like, oh, I can't stand, it's just such white walls, you know. So I have asked a couple of our Harrisburg residents to come to our board meeting, which they did, and try to engage them in being hired to do some artwork for the airport. So it's looking very, very positive. I'm very much an advocate in my role there of engaging our minority businesses, our women-owned businesses, our veteran-owned businesses, and spending some of that money with us. So I'm hopeful that, you know, the plans that our artists, I'm like, you guys are the artists, you know, I draw stick people, I don't know. I'm like, you know, so they're coming up with proposals and budgets and so forth that, you know, will represent their expertise. And hopefully we will have some art. I know that, you know, there was a lot of talk about the Tuskegee Airmen mural on 6th Street, which I showed to the board, and they were very impressed. So we're hoping we'll have representation with whatever that artwork ends up being. So
that's an amazing topic too.
Yeah, and I was like, let's bring some Harrisburg residents. Let's get some of our people engaged. And I thought it was a very good, you know, the young man that came, I think it was a great experience, not only for him, but for the board members as well. Because I'll be honest, I'm not sure that they've seen this type of talent on a regular. It just doesn't happen where they're from. So I was very excited about that. So that's all I have today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that descriptive quarterly report. Highly appreciated. Maybe a bit, I might not be informed with this, but are we still pursuing an actual health department at this point? Or is that something that kind of?
I think it's probably I'm still kind of in the works.
Okay.
I think that there, might have been other priorities. I think, right now I'm just trying to keep going to whatever it's going. And I'm not sure, what the guidelines are going to be, because I know there was some conversations, the state wanted to, had some guidelines and different things like that. So
Right.
I kind of think it's just trying to see what happens.
Absolutely. I think that would
Yeah.
be something incredible for the city if we're able to achieve it at some point.
It's an expensive proposition, so I don't know if that could be, I mean, obviously, money is always an issue, so
Absolutely.
we'll see.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I will open up the floor to my far right, Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez, and thank you for being here tonight. It's always a pleasure, hearing your health report, very detailed. I didn't have a lot of questions. One, before I start my questioning, I just want to say thank you for being an extra tax enforcer. It's much appreciated. It's just like us helping one another, right? So, no, thank you for that, and thank you for cheerleading for Harrisburg when it comes to the murals and the Harrisburg Airport. That would be great to see. I think we have so much talent. I mean, the paintings that are on the side of the buildings in Harrisburg are remarkable. So to see that talent go even further out of the city would be great. So thank you. The issue that was happening on Her Street, has it been settled? Or is there still a process going on?
It has been settled mostly.
Okay.
The corrections that and the things I asked them to do, they have done.
Okay.
I just think there's an issue there with the types of the environment itself. I think we interfered with maybe some of the plans that they were thinking about expanding and doing some things differently. So, like a lot of the equipment, a lot of the stuff that was there needed to be removed. And it was indicative of like gaming, it was just a lot of things that we said, you need to get this out of here and we need to, clean up these things. So what the telling thing will be again is, when the residents, when the code officer actually goes heavily into the apartments, into the upstairs area, a lot of the citation stuff was the lower level, the restaurant and kind of adjacent, external stuff. But once he gets up in there, it'll be interesting to see, but we wanted to deal with the initial concerns that, there were just too many people there. It was just too many people and too many things going on. There was a patio area that, when I inspected them a couple years ago, they talked about, getting an outdoor permit, this and that. And the landscape had changed for this because it was a rocky, beat up looking patio, and all of a sudden they got a smoker out there, and it's looking different. So we just like, no, you really need to go through the process and have things evaluated properly. So hopefully all this just means that they will do things right, and some of this traffic will slow down.
Okay, thank you. And have you been able to follow up with the resident from that Her Street information?
Yes.
I mean, incident.
From the,
Yes, sorry. Wrong word. And my last thing was, have you ever I love the recipe that you had in here. I want to try it. But have you ever considered maybe doing like a health segment on our TV station? Just something quick, just saying, hey, here are some things, or just giving information, because what you give is just very interesting. I know it goes on, I'm sure it goes on the website, but you're very informational. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
I know I did something under the previous mayor, so
Okay.
yeah, anytime, and again, John is really good with a social media guy. He's great with all the social media stuff, so we were talking about maybe, posting a little more live content or recorded content. So that's something we definitely think about. And initially that was part of our special project, was to buy equipment, but it just never got off the ground. But he had put together a whole studio, and I had the money to do it, but it just didn't, was too much at the time, too much transition.
Well,
So now you'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I hope we can come back around. I think that would be great. Really,
Thank
I
you.
would. You're welcome. That's all from me.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson.
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. I don't really have questions, just a couple of comments. One, thank you for addressing that Her Street incident, which, finding creative ways to help solve our citizens' issues is a big thing. And by you being able to go out there and help them immediately, that speaks volumes. So I want to thank you for that. And then thank you for being a champion of the city. I'm seeing with what you're doing at the HIA and how you're championing these new restaurants and everything that's coming through. So, you know, we need more cheerleaders, you know, because you hear the negative, but I love the positive that you're bringing into to our space. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Vice President Green.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. I don't have any questions for you. I do appreciate all the work that you and your department's doing. So thank you and keep it up.
Thank you for that. Madam President.
Thank you. I just have one question related to the newsletter and just accessibility for residents or members of the public. So it will be housed on the website, or will it be circulated via email like the city's formal newsletter, or how will residents or members of the public be able to access the newsletter?
Oh, excellent question. All of the above is going to be circulated to the public, you know, so my initial thoughts were we'll probably print up a few hundred and have them, and we go out and do our inspections, leave them at the restaurants. Because again, it's always going to be that, you know, professional training piece. But hopefully people will pick them up, you know, because there are other things in there for the public. So they will be printed. You know, I have a budget for printing, so I'll have it done professionally and have them available in the lobby, you know, outside of code, and we will be carrying them with us whenever we're doing inspections, you know. And of course, I can always get these three guys, you know, on the front. They're going to be passing them out. But, you know, and obviously at the restaurants we highlight, you know, get them to kind of, you know, promote it and just share that. I will say also that one of the areas of expansion for the newsletter I'm looking at is environmental justice and you know, and environmental justice, and just kind of looking at, you know, urban, you know, conservation and those kinds of things. So that is going to be an additional area for the newsletter, just to kind of, because we, again, have some environmental issues. I'm just kind of, again, learning a little bit more. I went to a meeting with some of our sustainability people, and it's a big thing. And, you know, and there were some interesting topics that were brought up, you know, just the heat index for the city with all the pavement and people, you know, and just not having the greenery. It was just really interesting. So that's something that we would probably touch on, because again, it is a health issue. So, you know, those are going to be the kinds of areas that we're just going to be distributing this. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilman Majors.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Wright, for being here. You know, I will, you know, note that I think it's a great thing that at least we're still actively looking at the potential of exploring a health department. It is an expensive endeavor, as you noted, but you know, still continue to champion on and see, you know, if there's something that we'll be able to do. If we get the information together, we can at least, you know, take a look at it. With respect to the inspections, what was, I know you laid out an order in which you were trying to tackle some additional inspections. I was just asking one question about the definition of specialty. You mentioned Asian and specialty stores. What's the definition of a specialty location that you'd be looking to do an inspection of?
Well, generally, it would be like sushi, you know, any entity that's doing anything like canning or you know, I guess they call it special processes at retail. So there are some that are doing those kinds of things. And I'm not trying to target any particular type of thing, but there are just some different ways, you know, that, you know, that people are preparing. So, you know, so those are going to be areas where I always try to be mindful of, you know, any kind of cultural changes or things that are unique to cultures without, you know, I don't want to stigmatize them, but at the same time, we want to make sure that whatever they're doing culturally, that it's still in compliance with, you know, the code. So that's sometimes a difficult dance, but it has to be done. So we kind of take that extra time for that.
Okay. All right. Now I was just trying to get some clarification because I just wanted that. And then I'll be reaching out to your office about, I know one point last year, last cycle, we were looking at a corner store ordinance. So bringing you involved with that, along with Public Works on how to address some of the issues that we face with our corner stores. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Chair Rodriguez.
Thank you, Councilman Majors. I see Councilwoman has stepped out. Yeah, if she does have, I think she's at the, Councilwoman Daniels, any questions? She has no questions for you. If that is all, any further questions from council?
Oh, I just wanted to note that our research analyst Cedric Humphrey did conduct a research memo regarding corner store ordinances. If I'm correct, Cedric, from what I read and what I remember of the memo, many of the municipalities that have them and that enforce such ordinances have a formal health department. So I think that might pose a challenge in implementing one here, but perhaps there is something we can do. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And before you leave, Ms. Wright, do you know of any, is there a specific hours of operations? I tried to look through e-codes. I didn't see it for like convenience stores. Is there one that you suggest, or is there one that they traditionally utilize? In stores? Yeah, like convenience stores, I guess they label it.
It varies. I mean, I would say 8 AM to 6 PM.
Okay.
But.
But to be a 24-hour, those aren't really
But
available.
generally here, your 24-hour stores are only gonna be like your gas station.
Okay.
chain,
So would it be rare for like a corner store, convenience store to be open 2, 3 AM? Okay, all right, thank you.
I would.
Right, if there's no further questions from council, you are free to go. Thank you for.
Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely, thank you for that descriptive report. And I believe that completes the business for the Public Safety Committee. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
We will now move forward with our agenda. The next item is public comment. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. If you could please state your name and your address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live. You'll have 2 minutes to share your comments, and Mr. Parker will serve as our timekeeper. I'll begin to my far right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, anyone in the middle, if you could please come to this microphone here. Thank you.
You hear me okay?
Sir.
My name is Shane Fox. I live at 1522 Green Street. And I'd like to thank you all for being here and for your service to the city. And I'm here again tonight to plead with you to please do whatever is within your power to get Mayor Williams to restart the safety improvements to State Street. It's one of the most dangerous streets in the city. I don't live in Allison Hill, but I ride to recycle bicycle at least once a week. And my family and I, we get around the city without cars. My daughter rides her bike back and forth to school. I walk, I ride my bike. My wife takes cat buses, and many of my neighbors in Midtown don't own cars. I realize that for many of you, probably, right, that's your reality. Everywhere you go is in your car. Many of us can't afford cars. Many people are disabled. They can't drive cars. I have a next door neighbor. She's a single mom. She has 2 teenage kids. They live in a small apartment. Every night she walks downtown to Federal Tap House. She works late. She walks back home in the dark by herself. Like many of us in the city, I'd say the majority of people in the city can't afford a car. I realize that's not your reality, right? People on council, you're all, right? You're middle-class people. Majority of people in the city can't afford a car, but yet we continue to structure our society in such a way that we're forcing people to own a car. So I know tons of people, they have crappy cars and it's the bane of their existence. Every time the car breaks down, they can't afford it and they have to pay for it. And State Street, it was such a wonderful opportunity. We had, at the time, council unanimously approved the improvements. The mayor was the head of council at that time, as you all know. They all voted to approve it. We had a contractor, they started work. I was so excited to see what was going to happen. 2nd Street is amazing. 2nd Street's finished, it's changed our lives. I walk every day on 2nd Street, I ride my bike. And please do whatever you guys can, right? We need change. We need more different modes of transportation. Not everybody has a car. We need people who walk and ride bikes need to be safe as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the middle section that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, anyone to my left?
Hi, Amber Blaylock from the New Fox Ridge neighborhood. I too am here about State Street. I am asking the council to please hold a vote on rescinding the cease and desist order for construction on State Street and to please proceed with State Street safety improvements. I understand parking is a concern, but there are very viable plans that are both safety improving and preserve parking spaces. It does involve standing up to PennDOT, but I don't think anyone here is unwilling to do that. I think that we are all a little bit fed up with PennDOT trying to treat neighborhood streets that happen to be state-owned as alternatives to highways, and State Street with its school zones is a particularly egregious example of that. I think it's really important to get State Street safety improvements back, to narrow those lanes to 10 feet, to look into the possibility of removing one lane each way. And yes, I would also very much like to see a bike lane on there. I would also like to add that the bike lane plans for State Street were actually potentially precedent setting because there is a problem with the Pennsylvania oversight and legislation for state roads where parking has to be within a certain distance of curbs, preventing parking protected bike lanes. The state government has only tried to act on it by also bundling in anti-municipal bills that would criminalize or force municipalities to enforce a lot of very minor traffic nuisances that are often used for driving while black pretext, basically. And this would have actually created a curb to protect the bike lane so that the parking could park next to the curb. Once we have an example of that, that's something that can be done on state-owned streets everywhere. That's something that's of very broad interest to cycling. I think it's really in everyone's best interest to proceed with that work and to just get things done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Hunt. It was not my intent to come down here tonight. I tried watching this program on television. I couldn't hear the officer. We have to do a better job of making this easy for people to hear what's going on at City Council from home. In addition to that, at one time, we had captions. We no longer have that. We need to look at bringing that back, and maybe some of the City Council members should listen to or watch the program after the fact to see just how bad it is for people who can't come down here. And one of the other issues about coming down here is finding a parking space. So people aren't motivated to come down here because oftentimes I park on Riverside Drive, that's Front Street. And that's a little hard to be, for me to be walking to that at night. And as far as the 19th and State, about a year ago, a light fell. We have not been able to get that light back up there. The engineering people did go and put signs around the corners for people not to park so close to the corners. However, either people can't read or they're just ignorant, one of the two, if not both. But what is happening now is we have to ease on out into the driving lane to see if you can get out. That needs to be addressed. Get that light fixed, or maybe stand up to PennDOT and get a traffic light up at 19th and State. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my left that would like to offer public comment?
Need to get a taller microphone then. Okay. Hi, my name is Brandon Basom. I live on the 3000 block of 3rd Street. Oh, okay. I'll try. It's very low. Okay. Anybody who knows me can tell you that I'm a fan of group rides, and especially those that help children learn to safely bike in the city. Mayor Williams has announced a kids bike ride to be held on Saturday, May 13th at 11. I'd like to also make sure that you're all aware that this is the Saturday before the annual Ride of Silence, which will be held at the Capitol Steps on Wednesday, May 17th at 7 o'clock in the evening. This is our yearly event to mourn those killed and injured by traffic violence during the previous year. We'll be honoring the lives of people killed in many communities across Pennsylvania, including our own. 2022 put me in the hospital after a vehicle knocked me off my bike in a hit and run. It also took the life of my friend and of another young woman whose bike we worked on in the shop, both trying to traverse the city on their bicycles. I invite the mayor, city council, other mayors of city government, and the community to attend the Ride of Silence and join us in the acknowledgement of the losses suffered by friends and family in our city and state. Members of our community who have been injured or lost loved ones to the streets are often not acknowledged, and those who enact policy and infrastructure have a responsibility to see and hear them. As a city, we have failed these members of our community. A year ago, Harrisburg's mayor ordered a cease and desist of the State Street safety improvements. These safety improvements were in line with the city's Vision Zero and comprehensive plans, which were both voted on by City Council. They were overseen by a qualified city engineer who got concessions from PennDOT. Funding was secured for them, and they were unanimously approved by every member of City Council, including then Council President Wanda Williams. I was at that meeting when that work was canceled. I was told by the mayor's representative that it would be resolved quickly. I was promised by council members that they wouldn't let it drag on too long. I think we can all agree that well over a year is a little bit too long for this to drag out and for nothing to happen. I question whether anyone in the city had the authority to order these improvements stopped without a vote from council, but I think we can all agree that a year of inaction while residents have continued to be hurt and killed is a failure on the part of our government to meet basic safety obligations for its citizens. Across the city, this administration has not initiated any action that will improve safety conditions for pedestrians and bike riders. It has also actively stopped some improvements while letting others die on the vine. I'm winding down. I implore Harrisburg City Council to overturn the cease and desist order that is standing in the way of construction of a safe path through Allison Hill for those not in automobiles. Kids and adults trying to travel east of Cameron Street deserve a safe ride as much as kids riding with the mayor along Front Street Park. And again, I'd still like to invite everyone who can make it. It's going to be Wednesday, May 17th at 7 p.m. on the Capitol Steps. We'll have the white bikes out for every rider we've lost in the Commonwealth, a red bike for everyone injured. We'll have commentaries from the families of the two young ladies who were lost. It's going to be, I'm sorry, 7 o'clock on 17th. The one woman's family, my friend, is from Peru, so we're hoping to get a written statement that we'll read for her, and then the mother of Chantal Worley will be there to speak about having lost her daughter. So, yeah, I'd appreciate it if anybody could come. If you do, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else to my left that would like to offer public comment?
Hi, my name is Jonathan Dunkelberger. I live in Lower Allen, so I don't actually live in Harrisburg. But I run a little social bike club called Harrisburg Bike Crew, and I love Harrisburg. I spend a lot of time here, and I love hearing about new restaurants opening up because my rides and begin at local restaurants and, you know, watering holes and things. Part of what makes Harrisburg so nice is the variety of things to do. And in order to continue enjoying that and to continue feeling like we're part of this community, we need to be able to safely get around it. And that doesn't just mean the green belt. It means being able to safely use the streets. And in order for that to happen, there needs to be a little bit of focus on non-automotive modes of transportation, being able to safely navigate the city. As another speaker said, Second Street's improvements are wonderful. We would love to see more like that. We would love to see the State Street improvements resume, not just resume in the quite frankly neutered state they have been watered down to, but going back to the drawing board with all of the improvements that were originally in the approved plan back on the table, reduced number of lanes, curb bump outs, bike lanes, narrowed lanes. People are dying on State Street. People are trying to live and enjoy Harrisburg. So let's give them a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my left that would like to offer public comment? Okay.
I'm Pam Auer from 124 Pine Street. I've been debating whether I wanted to say something back and forth all night. I know change takes time, and I've got to keep working with everyone. But my frustration tonight, my hurt tonight was all the discussion during housing. One darn question about, are any of the units going to be accessible? One question. So that was frustrating because the people that, in my community, we're trying to fight going into, again, staying out of nursing homes. And the number one thing we need is housing. And we do need the affordable housing. Thank you for asking those questions. Definitely. So, but when you're thinking about making a decision on that building, can we find out if there's going to be any units that will be accessible, and what it would mean to, the disability community? And like I have to say, we come from all walks of life and income levels. We are the lowest of low income, but we also do have people who have a disability who are middle income that might be able to afford something too. But we need the housing. We need the housing to stay out of institutions. One of the other things that I wanted to say, all this talk about the accessible bike lanes in Second Street, and the work that was done. When you're talking about those in the future, because we need changes on what was done on Second Street. People who have visual disabilities are really having it difficult on those turnarounds, those turnabouts, because there's no warnings for them. Nothing was thought about, how do they know when they're able to cross the street? So if they're looking to put more in the future, think about what the impact will be for people with visual disabilities, and how can we make the change and improve them on Second Street as they exist now. We are trying to find some research on where they're done better. People in Erie are having the same problems. We're trying to come together as a community to find a way to answer that about the turnabouts. And one last thing, I want to thank you, Madam President, for talking about accessibility of the website. Please ask about section 508, because that's what and I'm going to verify, make sure I have because there's 504, the ADA, and 508, but I'm pretty sure 508 is what's accessibility for websites and documents, like the newsletter that would go out. Is it going to be 508 compliant so that anyone with a visual disability can be able to access that document? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my left that would like to offer public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing no one. The time is 8:37 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.